All right, welcome back to another awesome episode of Behind the Anvil. As you can see, we're behind the anvil, or it's behind us, or we're in front of it, whatever.
Yep.
Um, Kind of off the cuff, whatever. We were talking about knives. This time we're going to be talking about folders, friction folders, slip backs, lockbacks,
A little bit of everything.
a little bit of everything.
If it folds, we'll discuss it.
Yeah, it folds because you know there's a joke in there. I'm going to leave it alone. We're trying to keep it friendly, family friendly as we
Yeah,
can.
let's do that.
Um, Today we're joined with Joshua Eubanks, right? Am I saying your
Yep.
last name right?
You are. Yeah.
Okay, because I swear it doesn't sound right when you look at
It's
it.
got the S on the end there. So
Oh, they've got an S on it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, if I murder your last name a few times, I just call you Eubanks because I know too many Joshes. So,
It's like the weather guy here in Utah. So
right,
uh,
he's half right half the time. So,
yeah.
again, we're going to be diving in the world of folders, stories and everything else. Josh, give us a little bit of background of who, where you come, how you got into knife making, military, whatever.
Um, so I get around a little bit. I've been, I don't know, kind of a variety of experience. So hopefully that'll help some folks out. Um, I did do the army thing. I went and played army for 20 years and
Retired.
retired
Well,
out.
thank
So
you
that's
for your
nice.
service.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Um, did that. We were living here at the time. So anyway, before that, I moved around quite a bit with my family. My dad was an ex-Navy guy and same thing, worked for DOD. We bounced around quite a bit, a few different states, and I think I got state history in about every high school in the South. So
I disappeared. Gotta watch that every now and then.
so, but after that, I decided to kind of do this.
One of these days, I'll get some real damn chairs instead of these. So
There you go.
good for camping, but not so much for this. But sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh
interrupt. Go
yeah,
back.
you're good.
You're bouncing around, and
Anyway, lots of moving around and did the army thing. I did welding and machining when I first joined. So picked up a little experience there. Worked on mostly heavy equipment, a lot of track vehicles, tanks,
so you're mechanic in the military.
was in a couple
I think
army
you said you were
units
AMP
and
at
things
one
like
time
that.
too,
I
right?
was. I did the mechanic slash welder thing, and career progression was a little slow in that. I love the job, but I didn't want to be an E5 for the rest of my life. So
Mhm.
I switched jobs to do the MP thing. So did the police job, and
Yeah, I guess I hear EMPs are quite fond of in the military, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
it was a job. It paid the bills,
it
so
was a
it was
job.
all right. A little political for my taste, but
No,
it was
I
good.
wouldn't have a clue because I've never been in that world.
It
So
was good experience.
okay.
I've always had the interest of firearms, knives, that kind of stuff, and specifically how they work, building them. But the MP thing actually helped me out because then I was in the land of using them and carrying them a lot and realizing what I really didn't like carrying around all the time, what I did, what worked, what didn't, tried
What
all
did
kinds
you
of
carry
different
around?
knives and things like that. Um, well, most of the time when I was on duty, if I was working the road or doing patrols and stuff, we always call it working the road. Just a serrated folder. I think it was one of the Spydercos or something like that at the
Nice.
time before I knew anything about building them well enough. So I admired
Didn't know what
the
a
other
real knife
ones.
was at the time. So
Yeah, right. So I took what the manufacturers had available, and there's nothing wrong with that,
no, there are
So
some
it
good.
worked good, but it was basically a strap cutter,
Yeah.
for a seat belt or something, because most of the time I was opening a package or, in the incident of a car wreck or something like that, you got to cut a strap or break a window or something like that. So that's kind of what I was looking at. But anyway, experience with that. I carried other ones. Some of them didn't work so well. Some of them did. So it was good experience for me to kind of get that or have the
That
opportunity
building
to.
block of
Yeah,
open
it
that box
wasn't
to fear.
theoretical anymore. I was actually able to use them and put them to use. And I'm like, well, that thing's crap. I'm not going to carry that
Yeah.
anymore,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So it helped. Um, I thought I was kind of comfortable and doing my thing, and then the army found me
Uh-oh.
and said, "You're gonna go to recruiting duty." So I went
Oh
and did the
boy.
recruiting thing for a few years and finished up my time and retired out not too long after that. So
And did you deploy overseas or any or
I did a tour in Iraq. That was back in '05, '06.
I believe that's been
I
20
was in
years ago
Italy for
now.
3 years, Korea for a year, and several others I didn't
How
mention
was the
on
food
there.
in
So it
Korea?
wasn't bad actually. You kind of get used to it.
I
So
got a friend of mine, Robert Garcia, Air Force,
uh-huh.
Reserve, Chair Force all the way. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rob. Um, But I heard it's pretty good eating food over there. But
If we had to go somewhere, they'd fly us. If we had to get somewhere else, then the Navy would put us on a boat and take us there. So good transportation.
nice. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that.
I know you're good. Um, yeah. Anyway,
So
that's
20 years in the
a little bit of
military.
background there. So I retired out.
Where were you born and raised? Or you just kind of born and raised in
Texas mostly, but I grew up
Texas?
in, I spent some time growing up mostly in Texas, some in Florida, some in Georgia. Um, Out here, obviously, I met my wife out here. She's from here, from Aurora.
Yep.
We got married and we stayed here. We were in Richfield for a little bit. I decided to go do the Army thing, and then now we're back. So I retired, we moved
Nice.
back, and
Full circle here.
yeah.
So Texas, Texas is a fun place. I like to go there to visit. If it had mountains like us, I'd probably move.
It
I don't think I'd like the heat in the summertime.
gets toasty.
But yeah, it was actually when we went out last April to Texas Sled.
Uh-huh.
I was waiting. I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get out of the cold." Well, the cold followed me. It was the coldest time ever. I've never seen Texas at 40 degrees.
You didn't follow, you brought it with you.
Yeah, I brought it with me. I brought it with it brought with me. I apologized to everybody. He's like, "I'm sorry." That cold front just shot down on there, and that's the most layers I've ever seen cowboy wear. And
Right?
he was still shivering. It's like, dude, I've never seen you wear so many layers in your life. He's sitting there just a shivering.
Yeah.
But it was a good time. And so what? You mechanical and everything else. You said and you use different knives and such. What got you into knife making? What really opened that Pandora's kind of box? Because everybody I know that gets into knife making, a few people that took in my knife class have gone down that rabbit hole, and they're 10, 5, 10, $15,000 of equipment
Right.
over a number of years
Oh yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So what
It'll add up quick, that's for sure. And so I learned that. Hopefully what I can bring to some of our viewers is, I guess, mistakes that I've learned and some of that. So I did do the mechanical engineering thing. Some of that not so much in the Army, but I studied it. That's what I did in college and took that. Um, and it helped. It helped me with my hobbies a lot and that kind of thing. So it also helped, I guess, with the mechanical engineering thing. It's like, yeah, I take good knife designs and I make them worse and figure out how to mess them up. But that's what engineers do a lot of the time. But
Yeah,
um,
mechanics love engineers. I mean, I've seen some pictures of vehicles out there, and there's literally a motor. I think it's a Cadillac, and the fucking starter. Pardon my French. I'll try to keep it. Is sitting right on top, underneath the manifold, the
uh-huh,
intake manifold,
uh-huh,
the starter.
right,
A mechanic must have pissed off an engineer that day. Is all I can say. So,
something. But so in engineering, they call, well, so reverse engineering is like a bad term, right? That's kind of an ethical thing. Like you take a design, you tear it all apart, and
should I say that
you
loud?
copy it
Shut
basically.
up.
And reverse engineer. So that's how they use the term there. But I refer to myself as a reverse engineer, which is kind of goofy. Only
Well,
only engineers would
I
get that, I guess.
kind
But
of the same way too.
that's
So.
because I did it the other way around. Most of these people go to their schooling, they go to their college, and they do it that way, and then they get a job, and then they're working in the field, and that's where they start picking up experience and that kind of thing. I kind of was backwards. I didn't go to college first. I did the Army first, which is I'm glad I did. And they paid for it.
There you go.
So win-win. But I did it in the other order. I did it backwards compared to what most people do. So I
It's
was
not a bad
I
idea
was
if
a
you do.
machinist and a welder and fixing vehicles and fixing tracks. And if I goofed it up, oh well, I'd get yelled at. And it was, the Army paid for it. So I got to make some little mistakes and learn along the way and figure it out. And so it helped me a lot of experience in a short time. But anyway, I was doing it that way. So I had exposure from that side of it, tearing apart transmissions, looking at the cussing engineers, like who in the
You
crap
want to
came up
turn
with
this
this
way back a
thing,
little bit, you can too. Try to make this a little more
Yeah.
comfortable.
Our
We're gonna get some better
conversation
chairs hopefully here soon.
someday,
So,
right?
yeah. Rich and famous kind of. Yeah.
There you go. Donate to the chair fund so we get
There
that
we
chair.
go. I'm actually gonna start a Patreon account, and then everything will go there first, and then out from there.
There you go.
All right. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
So tearing things apart, looking at it from that perspective, and then slowly over time building into where I did college classes, where I did the engineering thing and saw it from a whole different perspective. So getting into knives, enough about me. It was kind of nothing against the manufacturers in that. They do a lot of homework and a lot of, that helped me to understand the work and all the development that goes into just coming up with a new product. Um, but everybody's different. People like different things. So yeah, I look at a manufacturer's knife and I'm like, well, it works, but if it was this or if it was that, or it'd be so much better. Or for me or for my uses, if it had this on it, or you know what I mean? Or even be able to change just a slight thing on the handle shape or something like that. So obviously that led into I always had an interest in those anyway. If it's got moving parts on it, I like it. And so tearing things apart, trying to understand how they work and try to figure out how to make it better. How can I improve on this? Or this knife is awesome. I love everything about it, but the blade is junk. I'm sharpening it every 5 seconds. The thing is junk, or it chips out on me, or whatever the issue is. It's just always something that I didn't quite like about it. I guess I'm a perfectionist, but
Speaking of that, I get there for a while. I think somebody has copied my name out there on the SD, like Damascus Mike or something like that.
oh,
Like, because every now and then I get these emails on my website. Hey, I see you're on your SD account. I messaged back. So, well, I don't have an SD account. Is it this such a person? Says, hey, if you want to send your stuff to me, I says, I'll need your folder. I need your blade. I says, I can replicate it. I can put you a high quality Damascus blade on it. Well, I'd like this deal. I was like, well, I work with either high carbon or Damascus. I don't
yeah,
deal with stainless steel. We've had our discussions about that.
uh-huh.
I've had a few people D2. Oh, D2 is like D2 is kind of like I to me it seems like and like the way you explained it and a few other people sounds like a hybrid between high carbon and stainless. I don't see the love fest with D2.
It's a tool still. It works great, but I guess a knife or even a firearm or anything we're discussing, to me, it's a tool.
Yeah.
Always has been. And so I can't just pull a hammer out of my toolbox and say, I love this hammer. It's perfect. It'll do everything. No,
Mm.
it's good for hammering
Yeah.
and it works great for that.
Not so much for
But
blade
it's
steel.
not a wrench. It's not a screwdriver. It's not there's a whole list of things it's not. And there's one thing that it is. And it does exceptional at that one thing.
Mhm.
That's why we have multiples. That's why I don't, you don't have to sit there and decide like, ooh, this is the perfect one. That's all I need. No, no, no.
Well, unless it comes to the wife, and then that's a little different story there, right?
Well, yeah, that's a whole different.
Yeah. Anyway, I
Oh, I
thought
go there.
variety. When you're married, I'm single, so when you're married, variety does not work in that scenario.
No, no, those people are dynamic. That's a whole, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Engineering, not psychology.
right. Way over our head.
Uh,
All right, back to it. Back
out,
to the steel
out of
and
my pay grade. Um, yes. So to me, D2
it's D2.
is a tool. It's something to be used. So it'll work great for whatever application you're trying to fit it to, if it fits. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But
The right tool
it's
for the
not
right job.
yes, it's not the one all be all do all. It's not. It's just none of them. So they're going to be best suited to certain tasks and not others.
Yeah. Sorry for the squirrel second there. I just went through it.
Yeah.
So you're saying, the knives that you're using, one knife with bad blade, you sharpen every you cut a string on a belt twine, sounds like a Pakistani knife. Did I say that out loud?
Anyway, but that's the for looking for something a little better, or what can I do to it, or how do I personalize it, or how do I,
How can
and
I
that
make my touch and make it better work for
right,
me?
exactly, and that's kind of what got me into it. Which I started on fixed blades, did a few of those big old fat, thick, chunky things that couldn't cut butter if I tried. Until I kind of figured out what I was doing. Some of it was trial and error. Some of it was
I remember those
watching what
days.
others were doing, looking at other stuff, and like, why is mine so heavy? Why is mine this? Why is mine, and it took some time and some effort. I made more than my, fair share of scrap metal, that's for sure. Donated to that.
Same.
Um, but that's how you learn. And
Yeah.
that's how gain some experience and stuff like that. So hopefully some of that I can iterate to save other people some of the hassle and things like that. Um, To me, it would make more sense to kind of pick one or two if you're going into knives or really looking. I'm talking to wannabe or future knife makers out there. If you're looking
Or even the
at
hobbyists too.
hobbyists, anything, collectors that want to, figure out how to do it themselves and things like that. Um, make a couple decisions early. Like I like all of them too, and that's what makes things difficult is it's picking one or two,
Mhm.
because they're all cool. Um, but decide what you like best, kind of. And if you decide folders, folders are my thing. That's what I like. To me, in the world of firearms, I guess I'll make a comparison, probably a poor comparison. But a folding knife is more like a sidearm or a pistol, whereas fixed blades are more like your rifles and things. So I know, probably a poor comparison, but to me, I use that because if I got long range or serious or large jobs to do,
Mhm.
a rifle's always going to win the day. It's
Oh
always
yeah.
it's always a better tool.
Yeah.
Right?
No, to hit that elk at 300 yards with a
Just
45. So
just a little bit.
could it do
So
it?
not legally if you're hunting, but
Well,
yeah.
actually, you can. I think 45 caliber and up you can't hunt because of 45-70.
Pistol hunts, I guess, maybe something.
You can still hunt with the
Yeah,
pistol long as it. I think
maybe.
again
I'm
maybe
not
it's
up to speed
44
on all
caliber and
those,
higher. I
but
think it's 44 caliber and higher. I actually used to be able to hunt with 357. So 357 was actually manufactured and advertised as a big game gun.
yeah, there you go.
Squirrel moment. Sorry.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
good. I'm not up to speed on all of it. But anyway, that's just a comparison.
Random dumb thoughts of
Right.
ADHD.
But as good as a rifle is, do you want to carry it around all day? I don't know. Sometimes it can,
Well, in certain sense, it
be
depends
kind
on
of
the
a nuisance.
situation.
Whereas I just need something to cut with. A folding knife is always going to get reached for. You're going to take it out the door. It's going to be with you. It's there. It's convenient. It's the convenience factor, I think, more than anything. Which fixed blades you can do that too. Neck knives, you can scale them down. So it just depends on your preference. But they're definitely their own genre. They have their place. A lot of fixed blade guys
Well,
always
there's fixed plate
sat
there as
there
well.
and made the comparison and said, "Well, yeah, but you got a folder. Why would I want a broken knife? Because it's in two pieces." So that's
I know
simple
I've heard
logic.
that.
I've heard that, and
I've
I
heard
go,
that.
fair point. But it does that, and
Compact
it goes in your pocket, and
compared to,
it's just convenient.
you
It's
know,
always going to be more convenient.
I used to truck drive a lot. I used to carry a knife all the time, a different kind of style sheath. Like you're saying, convenience. When I got in the truck and everything, and sitting there, I quit packing my knife, put it in my bag.
Well,
I got in that bad habit of not carrying a knife. I never really consider carrying a pocket knife, but I got to the point, well, after getting, got the fluff here, I don't like anything in my pocket. Trying to learn, don't carry your wallet in your back pocket, put it in your front pocket because yours is sitting there like that in a
mhm.
truck. But yes, convenience. I mean, that's a lot easier to pop in the pocket or if a little clip on that. And I'm going to dive into that too, doing about clip placement.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it's a lot easier to pack this, and it's better to have it and not need it and not have it. And it's like we're at places, everybody's like, "I anybody got a knife?" They all turn and look at me like, "What the hell are you looking at me for?"
Yeah, because you're the
Well,
knife
you
guy.
make
You're
knives,
the
don't
knife
you?
maker,
You got a knife. Well, if maybe y'all bought a knife from me, you'd have a knife.
right?
So anyway, back to
You should be able to, and there's a
right,
knife, you
right.
just call
I
one
get
up.
that look. Like anybody got a knife, everybody turns their head like, "What? Where's your knives?" Oh, if you bought one, you'd have one.
Right?
So anyway,
That's
back onto
that's when you set your table up and you're like, I got them for sale right here.
yes,
Every
yes.
time they look at you. So anyway, convenience, I think that's mostly what it is. But they're old too. Like there's really cool history to them. They've been around for a long time. They found an old Roman folding knife. So some cool stuff out there. The concept's been there for a long time. To me, it's more, I like moving parts, I guess. So a little bit more of the challenge and just convenience. I've always packed folders. I've always used them, had them on me. So, um,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Being dad moment.
mostly what I gravitate to. So anyway, we're talking about folding knives and a lot of this stuff, and we haven't really talked about, I guess I'll discuss the different flavors a little bit.
Yeah. Um,
Types.
and then we'll troubleshoot this one because before we started talking, you mentioned a couple things, and I'm like, that's what I'm doing, Gronger forgot. So
Yeah. Well, whatever I can do to help.
All right. Anyway, let's dive into the different styles of
So
pocket knives out
I
there.
picked this one up and had it. This is one you built.
Yep.
Nice job, by the way. It's got this little tang sticking up there. I don't know if everybody can see that.
There, your camera's up here.
Yes, I'm
Well, no.
nope, disappeared.
Back to you.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Gotta have a background. So you see this little tang sticking out. That's just so you're able to open it with one hand if you want to.
It's a little
Something to
tight
push
for
against.
that.
But it also serves the purpose of pushing against something in there. There's another pin right there that it locks against. It's not a locking knife though. If you put pressure on it, it's just gonna push down. This has got tension on it, so that's why they call it a friction folder.
Well, let's dive into
It's
the history of that
friction
too.
basically holding it open. Now, when I'm cutting and doing that, most of the pressure is applied this way. It's not ever it's got to stop then. It can go this way. So as long as you design it right, it's very simple, very, this is like caveman's design stuff. It's very old. It's been around for a long time. This is the original concept to all of your locking, folding knives and things like that. And then it just folds up conveniently. And again, friction holds it in place, not just going to slide out or fall out and come out open in your pocket or anything. And that's it. This one's pretty techy because he's got the carbon fiber on there. It's, newer materials. You could do bone, you could handle material, literally personal preferences, whatever you want to use.
And the reason I'm going for that is weight saving.
Yeah, weight, things like that. You put liners in it. Some of them you don't have to even use
I kind of like the liners.
Get
They
real
give it a little
simple.
more structural strength in my thinking.
So do I.
Even though it's carbon fiber, still wanted something a little more than just that. Because I did the one you helped me a while back. I built for Dan.
Mhm.
I used carbon fiber and just the vulcanized liner material
Yeah,
for the inline. So,
right. Which is it's serving as the liner. Really light, really lightweight.
oh yeah.
There's ways to take weight off. But anyway, they're
Unless you're this kind of weight.
well, the knife.
Okay, well, fuck
Weight of the knife. So they're fun because anyone wanting to get into folding knives and explore them, check out friction folders, do searches on them, research them a little bit, look them up. There's all kinds of different takes and ways you can approach these, but they're just fun to do, and it teaches you the fundamentals of drilling a hole 90 degrees, getting your holes lined up, working with basic patterns and things like that. Some knife makers do not use patterns at all. For folding knives, I definitely recommend a pattern of some sort.
And I was telling Sam last night about it. It's like before I talked to you, somebody said, "Have you thought about making folding knives?" Yeah, I thought about it, and I had no clue.
Yeah.
It didn't even clear to me to make to think of getting pattern and going off a pattern. I'm sure eventually.
Well, you hadn't done it before.
I've never done it before. And
Yeah.
it's, I mean, one of these, that's
Right.
here, gotta get right here. Once I get the wall done, we'll switch over and quit using the background. Maybe I'll have get Dan to print me off a thing. We put it, and then I'll put the bardiche there. Anyway, back to the knife here.
Squirrel.
A squirrel moment. So another squirrel moment. You told me the friction folder is actually a very, very, it dates back 3,000, 4,000 years ago with the Romans.
Yeah. Old design. It's been around for a long time.
Let's dive into that a little bit. I know you told me a little bit.
I'm not a historian or anything, but they found that specific one. I think it was somewhere near the Colosseum or in the Colosseum where they found it. And it's on display there. You can pull pictures up
Nice.
online and things like that. And it kind of looks, I don't know if it's stag or what, it's some kind of antler. It's kind of got a curved handle and a blade in it.
Mhm.
I believe this little tang portion here that sticks up is forged. It's kind of curled a little
Oh,
bit.
really?
It's
I'll
got
have
the
to
little
look at-
swirl.
I looked it up once and I
So
don't know.
it's a cool looking little thing. It's neat to think that far back that they were, kind
Yeah.
of doing some decorative stuff. But it to me it changed perspective a little bit because you always got the imagery of Roman soldiers packing their, a gladius and their swords and all that equipment, all that stuff. And I'm sitting here thinking of my days in the army. I'm like, yeah, I remember
Now,
packing a bunch of heavy stuff around. They always gave us more to carry, but they never took anything away.
And part of this was actually to kind of clip it on, wasn't it? Or was it something else that had a clip onto it?
Well, I think a lot of the older designs didn't have that little stop pin right there.
Okay.
And so they just had a back spacer because you kind of got to have something.
To stop it.
Or they just cut a slot in a piece of antler because it's already a solid piece. I
Mhm.
think they would just cut kind of a slot there and put a hole through it and drop the blade in there. Well, again, if there's nothing to stop it when you open it, it's just gonna sit there and
Kinda
it
go
just
back.
kind of flopping around, that's not going to help you or do much for you. You want it to stop in a specific place. So yours, you have the stop pin right there, that little
And
silver
it's got the little notch in it.
part. And I think some of the other designs that don't have that, you just use your backspacer as a stop,
Okay.
basically, which you can do with this particular one too. That little
Yes.
angle right there could line up and do that, or you do both. I like to do that sometimes. So I've got that stopping it and that. So I've got the support of the backspacer and a pin.
And
So
that's why I went with that.
like I could baton with that thing and chop up some firewood if I needed to. I'm not worried about it going that direction and breaking or anything. It's going to be pretty solid piece.
Mhm.
It's just a friction folder, so don't do work that's going to put a bunch of force going that way because it's going to get you. It's going to bite you if you go that way. But as long as I'm putting down pressure and cutting that way, however you do it, you can even have a backhand position and go that way with it or whatever you need to do. You can gut out a deer with this
Well,
thing.
the blade's only one
Be
direction, so.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess design limitations, I wouldn't really do a double-edged
I honestly
friction folder necessarily,
yeah,
but
no, I wouldn't either.
they're a tool, they're a utility. It's not like a combat piece. I'm not going to go into combat with a friction
If
folder
I was
unless that's
on
all
a
I got.
combat piece, that's where I would pull out something like the DD Tactical.
Exactly.
You know, this is the nitty gritty, as they say, people opener. So, but you can check this knife out, self plug on episode 1 of Beat the Smith.
Okay.
So, hey, maybe we'll have to do that with Smith versus.
I guess that would be the hammer, right? Right tool for the right job.
Yes, right, exactly.
So, which having this on you is better than nothing. This is the convenience factor. If you got that on you and you happen to run into a people opening situation, then great. But if this is all you got, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. And then this is for the more, yeah, a lot of people like different.
Borrow that one real quick.
So
there, about the same size almost.
that's what she said.
Just one folds, one doesn't. So anyway, tools, they're awesome.
That's what she said.
So friction folders, I recommend starting there. It teaches you how to make the blade, how to work with patterns a little bit. Definitely use a pattern when you're doing folders because it's going to save you a lot of time and trouble. If you can just wing it and think all your parts are going to fall into place, and you're just going to frustrate yourself. It's a lot harder.
Been there, done that.
There's no shame in using patterns or jigs or whatever you got to use. So,
well, I mean, certain folders for like the lockback. I'm thinking, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the lockback you definitely want a jig to
yes,
transfer that.
You don't have to, but it's certainly.
I think a lot of knife makers that I know that do make folders all have jigs and patterns. So
most of them, if they're folders, most of the time,
yeah.
You know, as stubborn as you want to be, and you're like, nope,
unless you remember that design.
Great, but if you got to build more than one, and the situation always arises, you're going to build this thing, and people see it, and they're like, "That's really cool. Can I get one of those?" And now you're like, as a maker, because you're like, crap, what did I do?
Been there, done that one.
That's like cooking a good meal for the family. You're like, wow, this is really good. How'd you do it? And you're sitting here trying to think, how am I going to reproduce this? Because I didn't write it down. I didn't use a recipe. I just a little of this, a little of that. You know? So if you're okay with that, then great. But if at some point you ever got to reproduce, or you're going to do more of them, or you decide you really like it, but I want wood handles instead of carbon fiber, whatever, you're making more of them. So use patterns, pull out that same pattern. You've already done the work. Why do it again? Why reinvent the wheel every time you make a knife, you know?
Yeah. And now I've got a question for you real quick.
Sure.
No, I want to do some with some wood, but what I'm kind of worried about is, well, I pin these in.
Yeah.
With wood, you got the problem of splitting it. So I want to do bolster. I'll put a bolster on the wooden ones. But can you get away with pinging this if you go slow enough with some wood?
You can, with some patience. I would
Maybe
recommend
get a pin.
stabilized wood. It's a little better, obviously, holds up a little better. Which he's referring to the brass pins. These are just peened, and there's nothing wrong with that. The only problem is you get carried away and you bind everything up and you got them too tight. And that happened to me a few times, the first couple I made, and I had to sit there and use a lot of oil and work it back and forth for quite a while.
That did a little bit. I got a little bit carried away.
And it helped. But I was like, what am I doing wrong? Well, you remember some of that foil stuff I gave you with the heat treat oven.
Yes,
Super thin, but pretty stout stuff. It's stainless.
yeah.
It can be that, or it can be just
I wish I
stuff
still had that.
you know what I'm talking
I
about.
gave that to some other
Right.
people that, use it, whoever I give that to, I don't
I wish you had it too, because I don't borrow a little strip of it. 'Cause
Sorry about
just do
that.
that again. But you can use gauge spacers, I think, for automotive. It's an automotive tool that they use.
I use paper,
Use the really thin one, something that will hold up, so kind of a shim, basically is what I'm talking about.
I think I use G10 on those.
Because you'll drill your hole, you'll do all that stuff. I'm kind of getting into the build process here, but to answer your question, then you'll put your pin in, use that shim and put it in there on one side, and then go ahead and peen and do all your work and do what you need to do. Spray a little oil in there and pull that shim out. And what that does is it forces it to where you can't over crimp it. You can't do it too much because you've got that little shim, that little spacer in there. And you can't use paper or something like that because it's just gonna tear when you pull it out. Something that will hold its shape and keep that little gap, that little space. You don't want a big thick one, so something really thin and rigid that'll
Even
go in there.
all those gauge, if you get some of those old gauges from Mechanica, you're
Those are great because if you're just doing small ones like this, they'll fit. They're big enough, and it's like they're like they fold out. You know what I'm talking about?
yes,
They're
yeah.
like a folding
I
out.
know what the hell they're shim gauges. That's what it is.
Gauges, yeah. And then you can pick, how much of a space you want in there, how loose or tight you want it. But anyway, use that. Save me a whole lot of trouble. And then I can do pins all day long without worrying. These two you don't have to worry about so much because you want those tight. You're sealing everything up. But this one,
I put a little bit of glue and then
this one, we need a little play in there, a little clearance or tolerance, if you will. So put a shim in there and then you can peen it all day. They work great over time. This thing's gonna be, I can sit here and kind of do this with it, and it's just gonna kind of flop around because overuse and over opening and closing it a lot of times and a little bit of back and forth stuff, it's gonna loosen up. And which is good because it'll get to a sweet point where you really like it, and you can easily just do that with one hand.
When it gets too far
and get it right, and open it. So it's a one-handed knife. You can just pull it out with one hand, open it. You don't have to do like backlocks or not really. You gotta use two hands most of the time to open those. But eventually it'll loosen up and it'll be really nice. And then it'll keep loosening up over time and it's a little bit sloppy. All you gotta do, stick a shim in there again, just tap it a few times on the anvil and the hammer, peen that pin just a little bit more to take up that gap, and we're fresh. We start it over again. So this thing will last lifetimes.
And I went with you notice there's brass on everything, but the catch pin, I went with the stainless steel. It should last a bit longer.
When you peen it, again, use the shim because it saves you from over crimping it. But every time you do that, even though it's brass, because you've got to pivot, so it's turning, it's rotating against that. That brass is going to wear down faster than the steel will, obviously. And that's a good thing because every time you pushing in there to tighten it up a little bit, what happens when you've got a rivet that's brass and you're compressing it again? What happens to the middle? It expands a little bit again. So it closes up the gap between your pivot point and just tightens everything up to where it's like it was when you made it again.
I used a piece of aluminum tubing. The
aluminum tubing, just
for using for a thong hole.
Yeah.
And that's what I used for the
bushing.
For the bushing, yep.
Aluminum?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I had it. I forgot what we did. We actually made them on the lathe, but hey, I had it right there.
Stainless. If you can manage it, the phosphorus bronze is awesome. That stuff's
I'll definitely get some
pushing.
I'll definitely get some stainless, like but I had aluminum I had on hand, so
it worked.
It was the right size. So
well, we're talking old technology anyway, so it does the job. But the nice thing again is you can tap it a couple times, check it, tap it a little more, check it. So you dial it into where you want it. So there's no shame, there's nothing wrong with using those. Say you wanted to use other fasteners, you can invest in the screws, the really small screws that they make for folders. There's a lot of different companies that sell well, kits, but then also just the screws themselves and lots of different sizes, thread pitches, whatever it is you're wanting to do. Um, just measure and make sure that's what you want to use. And you can do that, but now you're getting into buying taps and needing to thread parts and do that. So if you want to keep it simple, peen pins, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to get fancy with it and start threading parts and using screw fasteners, if you're going to be taking it apart and putting them back together a
And
lot,
that's one thing you could get
makes
away
sense.
with the
But
screw fastener. You could pin everything else, put a screw fastener there. That way, if it gets a little issue, to tighten it up a little.
and I was going to get into that.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Um, because I do like that, like kind of a modified Chicago screw, or it's whatever it's called. It's basically the pivot screw for knives. You can get those, you can buy them. And you don't have to use it back here to hold everything together. You just use one up here. And most of them might be whatever that pivot is, just measure your stuff. And you don't have to be a mathematician or an engineer and sit there and do it all on paper necessarily. Do on paper your pattern and definitely use that and do your drawings. I offer a class. I'm happy to give people a class or a demo. I can do it even online if people really wanted to. We can figure that out.
Oh yeah, that'd
Something
be
up
easy
to do that. Where it's just a simple walkthrough. I can show them my method of how I come up with a pattern. So basically, I got to where, again, I liked a lot of the manufacturing ones. They've done a little of the work for me, not to cheat, but some of the ergonomics are already done. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? It's comfortable if I like the grip shape or something like that. But it's a lockback or it's a different type of knife, and I'll explain those here in just a minute. But it's something else that I don't want all that. I want a friction folder, but I like the shape of it. So I can basically trace that, and it's just simple drawings. You don't have to be a super artist with a couple basic drafting tools and some, if you can drive a pencil, then you can do this. And I can basically take just about any manufactured knife or folding knife or even a fixed blade, say I really like the shape of that, but I want to turn it into a friction folder. Then I would trace this outline, this pattern, and now I do the work of designing a folder. I got to figure out where my pivot point's going to be. So all I'm doing is putting a hole there because that's where it's going to rotate. And now I got to do an overlay or get you another. So invest in a light board. That thing saved me a lot of trouble. They're like $20 on Amazon or wherever. There's lots of places you can get them. Or just tracing paper. You do the old-fashioned way or a light box, whatever. But now I got two pieces. I got a hole here, so my pivot point, my blade, and I just got to make sure that this will turn. So on paper, I'm going to turn that thing and literally look at it and figure out, okay, that's what it's going to look like folded up. Oh, darn, my hand is too short or whatever issues I run into. So I can extend this out or, and play with the lines a little bit without radically changing the whole design to make it fit. And now I put in a backspacer, a couple of pins to hold it in place. I'm mostly done, other than just selecting my materials and what I want it to look like, right? And I can show people how to do that. It's really simple with the friction folder, and you can do that on just about any knife. If it's already a folding knife, so much easier because I already got my pivot point. I know where it is.
A little less math at that point.
Yes, and that's the thing. I didn't do any math to do that. I'm literally just looking at it and getting things lined up, using an overlay to make sure everything fits. And that's pretty much it. If I've got 1/8 inch, brass rod in the shop and that's all I got, well, then I'm probably going to use 1/8 inch holes. That's what I'm going to drill, or slightly undersized, whatever. So you can use what you got on hand. You don't have to use whatever size pin is there. As long as it'll fit, you've got some clearance, you can work with it. If you want to go a little bigger, you want to go a little smaller. But back to that pivot point, I like using the screw, depending on how thick it is when you buy those. Um, if you go too short, you can't add on. Like all
That's
the
what she
machinists say.
said.
But if you go longer, you can take a little off. So hit it on the
I think
sander.
all of us probably had a little taken off already, unfortunately, not by our
It's
choice.
called age or whatever, but
Or circumcision.
but you'll grind that down to a point to where you need it, right? And the easy way to do that without a bunch of math is you get your knife parts assembled, you got most everything cut out, you know what your thickness is. slide it through there. You got too much sticking up. Okay, grab a little fine point Sharpie or whatever, a scribe, make a little mark, pull it out. That's how much you gotta grind off. I mean, you're fitting. It's
Mhm.
custom fitting. You're doing that. That's okay. It's
Sort
part
of
of the
what I do.
process.
I like to leave a little excess,
Uh-huh.
and what I'll do is I'll peanut just a little bit to swell up, and then I go over and grind because if I pulled it out, I end up grinding off a little too much more. I'd rather slide a little extra in, peanut just a little bit where it sticks, everything that just gives
Well,
it
and
a
that's what you need to
yeah.
peen it. Which, but I'm talking the pivot screw.
Oh, this pivot screw.
We're
Sorry,
not pivoting. We're not
I
peening
my
anything there.
my brain went somewhere else. Sorry.
Okay.
This is
More,
why I hated school.
more
So,
squirrels, right?
yep.
Anyway, I like the pivot because I can adjust it. All I got to do is tighten that screw, loosen it off a little bit to adjust this right there on the spot. I don't have to repeen it or any of that. So that's an improvement that I found using an actual screw pivot on the front, at least where that is. Um, and again, I've mentioned you can just have the backspacer work for that. You don't have to use that other locking pin. You can use that other, well, it's not a locking pin because it's just a stop
It's
pin,
stop
excuse
in
me,
basically.
whatever you want to call it.
But I
But
think there's a
it's a
better
metal one.
advantage mechanically and for stability using that pin, and that's why I decided to go with it because I was looking at the pattern we've done one without
Mhm.
it, and I had a lot of. I mean, granted, and that's when you got to make sure your spacer in the back, or on the angle and everything, it comes in and touches just right, which is pain. But a lot of back and forth for a little file work, a little sand here to get that spacing just right, so when it comes around, it hits and it
Right.
sits perfectly. Now, if you notice that one, I screwed that up a little bit. The spacing between the main spacer of the blade and the backstop of the blade there barely touches.
Yeah, but you got that stop
Yep,
pin,
and that's what
so
saved
it
me.
just kind of helps, and it's
So,
a backup, if you
yep,
will. And I like it because it's just adds more strength to it.
yep. One thing
Yeah.
you were talking earlier, we were chatting before we started, and I didn't realize it. But now there is a spacer between the blade and the thing.
Hmm.
One keeps the blade from getting scratched to shit
It
on
helps.
the brass or whatever side material you're using. But you said you were saying something. Put liners between the spacer, the main spacer, and that to keep all that as you were saying
Yes.
the gap.
That was a mistake I made on the first couple I did. Well, one, I did it once. Um, Once bitten, twice shy, right?
Right?
So I added washers because I like that better anyway.
Mhm.
Because to me, well, it's a friction folder. Friction. Friction is a good thing in this case. Usually as an engineer, you're trying to reduce that. But in this case, I wanted more of it because I want stability. I want it to, work well. So if I add a couple washers in there,
Mhm.
one, it just keeps the blade looking good. It doesn't, you're not gonna get all them scratch marks and rub marks that you do from just the liners. But also just a little more stability. It's more surface area. More surface area equals more friction. So now what I forgot to do is I threw them washers in there. I was super happy with it. I go into town and building that knife, and I got my backspacer doing the same thing I normally always did. I forgot to account for the thickness of those two washers on either side plus the blade.
Mhm.
So my
So from
backspacer was already the thickness of the blade. I'm just cruising along thinking I did everything right till I went to put it together, and I'm like, what in the world? So I've got it wider up here and thinner back here. And so this is all crimped and good and tight on the back, and then I got little gaps right
yeah,
here at the
that's what
top. And I'm
I
like, what in the world? What did I do wrong? Till I kind of looked at it and slowed down a little bit, and I'm like, oh, duh. Well,
yeah, I
that
totally
was
forgot about
stupid.
that at all.
Simple mistake, but I didn't really think about it or catch it until after that point. I'm like, oh yeah. So I got to make sure that whatever washers I use that are laying around, freedom, I can go as thick or thin or whatever I want. I got a lot of leeway to do what I want to in this space right here. I just got to make sure that whatever thickness that ends up being, the blade plus my washers, is
Is
going to be the
reflective.
same as whatever my backspacer is going to be. Everything's got to be flat and level, and
And what I did,
everything
and I
works better.
noticed I had it was a little wider here, so I took out the washers and hand sanded them down to, as you can see, it's still a little bit wide at the
Yeah,
front, but
it worked.
if I'd have realized
It
that,
still looks really
I'd have
good.
saved a lot of. I'm surprised I'm not gray.
But that's the fun thing with these. That's why I say start with these
Yep.
because they're very forgiving. You're gonna make some mistakes. You might ruin one or two. You didn't spend a fortune on materials.
Nope.
If you don't have to. You can use whatever's laying around. In fact, a lot of guys I know that have done fixed blades and done them for a while, and they start to get kind of
Tired of it.
they want to explore.
Yep.
They want to try
Same.
something different. They want to, hey, I want to mess around with some moving parts too. Um, then they'll use cutoffs and scraps and whatever they got laying around to do these from these, because you always got parts left over and things like, especially if you do stock removal. So it's a good, it's marijuana. It's the gateway drug to
Well, hell,
to
no, no,
folding
no,
knives,
no, no.
right?
This is the gateway drug to open any kind of knife. Once you come take a class, you're kind of hooked. So
Right.
we don't recommend doing drugs either. So
Anyway, it facilitates into folders, definitely. So
it could be a worse hobby.
I beat that one to
methamphetamine
death.
is probably way worse.
I've seen cool variations of it. I've seen them use files, forge blades, patent stock removal, and fancy, D2, whatever, Sandvik, all kinds of whatever. You can use whatever you want to. As long as you do your pattern right. There are a few variations in these. You can get crazy with the tang back here.
Yeah.
I've seen big, long, fancy ones.
I've done one.
I've done a few that just are a little bit bigger. I make them kind of round and then go back in because I'll put a hole through there.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than, if really small ones, rather than having to run a tubing or a thong hole through this end, like a lot of makers do,
Mm-hmm.
I can put it through that if I want to. If I'm just gonna hang it on something or whatever. And it's bigger. So yours is a little bit stubby there. That's all right.
That's what she said.
Uh-huh. I can still get my thumb on there and push that open, right? The more you have up here, the easier it is to turn that around. That's going to affect the length of the spacer.
Oh.
Just part of your pattern, account for that, and however that's going to fit in.
Adjust,
So that's
yep.
part of the drawing process and the fun of designing. How big do I want this tang sticking out? How, whatever. The shape of the blade, you can do whatever you want. You got kind of a clip point, right? So pretty straight. You can do drop points. You could, like, the blade shape is whatever you want it to be.
I kind of like the look of that. It kind of gives you that old timer look.
I do. I wish it had a silver bolster and wood back here or something, because I engrave it and that would look very powerful.
I'm going to get in there, and I just need to. Well, one, I need to get a proper torch for it, and a little more patience to learn how to fucking solder. Pardon the French. God, I got to watch my language. I am not very.
We'll get there with both.
We'll say
language and the solder, right?
So
anyway, I beat these to death.
All right, let's move on to slip joints. What is a slip joint?
Well, and I'm no historian, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, for me, if I was trying to figure out a folder, this is probably what I'd come up with first. And then it's the whole, well, this is kind of a problem. I don't like that. How do we fix that? So now they got these things called slip joints. Texas is very familiar with slip joints. I don't know what's been going on the last few years.
Slipping the joint, man.
But they love them. They've been loving them things. Those are the slip joint knives. They've had a big resurgence. Like, they're really popular right now.
I've noticed that.
Which is a good thing. I like to see that. They're using modern materials, micarta, carbon fiber, all that kind of stuff, which, a slip joint, you think of your old case knives, your old, your grandpa's knife, probably any of those. It wasn't technically a locking knife. It didn't actually have a locking mechanism, but it had tension. You could kind of, I should have brought examples, but you can kind of pull this and it kind of springs, it's springy to about halfway point, and you'll feel it kind of pop into place a little bit at the halfway point, and then the rest of the way, and you'll feel it snap into place. There's just a big back spring right here, a flat spring. So that's
your
what's
spacer
tension. Spring tension holding that blade open. I can push pretty hard and it'll sit there and kind of bend a little bit, but it's not going to fully close on me unless I really put a lot of pressure, and you'll feel it kind of slip. You'll feel it slip in the joint there and lock and pop into place. So spring tension keeps it closed if you're carrying it in your pocket and stuff, and then you open it, and spring tension keeps it open that way. If you're being careless or something else and something really bumps it hard that way, it will pop itself closed. I got myself pretty good.
I think we've all been bled a little bit on that.
Anybody who slip joints knows what I'm talking about.
So the slip joint, it does the spacer / spring that's kind of fixed place a little bit. It's just heat treated enough to flex up towards the end, correct? Or
Back
does it pivot?
back here isn't quite as critical from my understanding, but up here, the whole piece, you might as well do a really good temper on and
Yep,
everything.
you just want
You're
overheat.
making a spring.
Yes,
And so
and then draw
the complication of building jumps up a notch there because there's no springs, there's none of that stuff to worry about. The only heat treat I'm doing is on the blade, really. Complexity jumps up a little with the slip joint because now, if you want to get in the slip joints, that's great, but you got to figure out how to make springs.
Mhm.
You don't do them
Yeah.
right, and you
I
get
would recommend
too much
5160 or
you got a beautiful knife that you did all this work in. You use it, you cycle it a couple times, and you hear it go pop.
yeah.
And so that first hole where the pivot is, it snapped, it cracked and snapped right there, and so you just lost the whole front of that thing. Now you don't have to trash the whole knife, but it's very frustrating to tear it apart and you got to build a new spring. Hence patterns. So I can grab my pattern and that saved me a lot of work that day. But you got to build another spring until you figure out tempering
So
and building
riveting the
springs.
riveting to that point, probably better off to get a little Chicago screw or
Fastening's about the same. You can use screws, you can use pivots. They did a lot of peen pivots back in the day, most of the time that are not pivots, excuse me, the pins.
Mhm.
Spun rivet construction was popular. And that's you make a little tool that you can put in a mill or a drill press, and you got to shape the head of it a certain way. But they're cool. It applies pressure, so it compresses it, but spins the top and makes it a nice, perfect little round domed rivet on the top of that thing.
Mhm.
So they're all uniform. They look the same. It's very professional. But now you're getting into building folders. You're going to want some kind of a basic machine shop setup. You know what I mean? And the
Mhm.
more I get into this, you're going to see like, well, if you want to build these, you need to add some of these tools. It's going
Yes.
to make your life a lot easier. If you want to build these, you got to add some of these tools. So I'm building up in complexity. These are pretty rudimentary.
The battery shop can
Slip joints, they're awesome, but you got to figure out how to make that flat spring and get that. Once you've got that
the heat treat
nailed,
and temper is very critical there and
definitely.
material. You don't want to use 1095 for that. You could, but I wouldn't recommend it to a high carb.
Yeah.
It's going overkill a little bit. I don't know what the comparison would be on that.
Softer is better than harder because I'd rather it wear a little
But
than to break on me.
I would say
But that's just
generally
me.
5160. I would get newer steel. Yes, you can recycle some spring steel. I just got to make sure if you forge it out, make sure you get a good
You
thermocycle.
can, you're just never quite sure what you're working with.
Yeah.
So
Well, your standard springs anymore are all basically
that's
5160.
true.
Since like I think it's 60, about 65 is when they started really generalizing on all automotive. Even more wide, that's pretty much going to be 5160. Now you get back
If you can
older,
find the right sizes and stuff
well,
laying
yeah,
around,
yeah, if you can,
you're grinding on it for days to get it
unless you
where
got a
it
forge and
hits.
you're forging out. But I would just go
Right.
ahead. You can get sim stock of 5160.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple other or 1075 will work.
Yep.
Um,
There's several options, but yeah, it's the matter of just figuring that out, doing the research, figuring out your temps and all that, and how to temper them, how to draw the
Full
spring
blue.
back.
I would definitely go full about
Yep.
600.
And
Almost there.
design too. You don't want to make it so thin and narrow down here on the end of it
Mhm.
that there's no stability to
Yeah.
it and things like
And
that.
that knife compared to this one would probably be just a slight size bigger.
Just a hair, probably. So,
Probably eighth inch, maybe.
but design wise, they're fun. There's a lot of tradition there. Those have been around for a long time too. The elephant toenails, there's so many different, design, the Coke bottle shaped ones,
Mm-hmm.
the leg. Remember that
Yep.
one? It's
Yeah.
got like a high heel boot on it. Tiny
Yeah.
leg. There's all kinds of cool designs out there and neat ones to reproduce or come up with your own. Um, but the complexity of figuring out
Yeah.
springs now. Other than that, pivot points, they're going to be the same. So everything you learn doing this will help you with the slip joint minus the spring. That's the new thing
I
you
mean,
got
the
to
back
figure
end
out.
of the blade's a little bit different than this design. You got the hole where your oh shit, your bearing or
Thong? Mm-mm.
yeah, your thumb hole.
If you're going to put one in it, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them didn't. Most of them are about this size, little
Mhm.
case knives and things like that. Just pins. and they make a pouch, or they
Well, I'm talking
just
about the
throw it in the
connection point
pocket
of the
of it.
blade and everything from this compared to this not style blade
Uh-huh.
of the friction folder to the slip joint. The slip
Oh,
joint kind of
the geometry
yeah,
of that. Yes,
geometry, yes.
I did kind of miss that. So there's going to be a little shelf. There's
Yeah.
a little geometry that is important that you want to keep when you build those. That's just part of the design. Um, Rather than reinventing the wheel, if you're starting out with this, what I recommend is buy a cheap one, or you got one that you like or one that you're not super worried about.
Tear it apart.
Yep, grind those pin heads off on one side and just take it apart. And that's your pattern. You can alter the shape a little, you can play with it,
Mhm.
but you've got the geometry on the back of the blade, because that is, yeah, definitely important. That
No step.
little
And
90-degree
I
shelf
forgot to
there,
bring the props in. I had the
and
patterns you've
the
left here
round
about.
portion of
Yeah.
it, because that's what wears against the spring as you open and close
Mhm.
it. But the geometry is already done for you, so you don't have to stray too far, and kind of leave that alone and build a couple of them until you kind of start to figure it out and figure out the springs, and you're like, okay, I understand how this works. I know what I'm looking for. The only jig you want to make for those really
It's for the spring.
is probably when you're putting it together.
Mhm.
So grab a piece of hardwood or aluminum plate or whatever you got laying around and put it on there, your pattern, and drill some holes. Be very precise with this step and get your holes lined up just as perfect as you can, because you're going to take those plates and set them on there as you're building the blade and put the spring on there, and you're going to sit there and mess with it a little bit and figure out, okay, I got to file a little off here, a little there, and dial it in and get it adjusted just where you want. That's your fitting part.
That's not a bad idea.
So that'd be a good jig for that. You can do it with these too. It's a little overkill because you can kind of do it in hand.
Yeah.
But those ones, when you're dealing with spring tension, trying to not have everything,
Slide off
you don't have the top plate on, and you're trying to fold it and trying to keep
Mhm.
popping off the pin, and just build a jig and go ahead and save yourself some trouble. And that way you can fit a lot better. But they're fun. It's just a learning curve. So to me, it's kind of, if you're like, well, I'll try them. You can with those. They're pretty affordable. You don't need a ton of tools for it. Just kind of depends on your process. But the more you get serious with it and you're like, you know what, I love slip joints. These are awesome. And they're selling like hotcakes, or, whatever. It helps the hobby pay for itself, or even profitable, or then get some jigs, get some decent tools set up, and that way you can repeat. Because folding knives, you're definitely gonna
They're
repeat
definitely
quite a
right.
bit. I can build 3 or 4 of these, and every one can be slightly different. The
Oh,
issue
definitely.
the issue with building 3 or 4 of these, they can be slightly different too. But every time I radically change the design, I'm reinventing the wheel. So I'm building a new knife every time. But there's some geometry going on in there, and I can't stray too far from that. So I'm pretty much
He's
gonna
using
be,
big words here,
yeah,
geometry.
I'm gonna be reproducing that a little bit. So geometry is in the shape.
So, and that's what my goal is. I kind of I like to look at the slip joint. I'm gonna work up to. I'm gonna wait until I get these. I guess you could say mastered it, or where I can basically do it in my sleep like I do
Uh-huh.
my things.
You're comfortable with them.
When you get
Then you go
comfortable,
to
and
the
you can
next
just
one.
go out there and just boo, 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 you don't really have to think about it. You get
Yep.
that muscle memory. So we got friction folders. We got slip joints. Slip joints are pretty good. What is the next one?
I would move into, which this is my
He brought
opinion.
notes today. I didn't bother to use ChatGPT to get my notes because it helps me think.
I didn't, and I should have brought an example of each one, but I
I
forgot.
have some out in the shop. I
But
just
it's
didn't
okay.
get around it. Anyway,
So we're doing theory right now. Maybe we'll do another one where I actually show it and explain a
maybe
little.
what we'll do is set up a table, we'll get the camera, and then
There
you
you
can
go.
draw it out, and we can do that'll be
We
our.
could.
I guess that would be more geared for our YouTube, but we can
Probably.
still
Give us some feedback. If
yeah.
let
Drop a comment. Let
people
us
that
know.
want to know, let us know, and we'll tailor it to that. If you want more detail on a certain one or whatever. Which, this is my opinion based on my background and that kind of thing. I'm not telling anybody out there that, oh, this is how you have to do it. And no, you can start with the most complex designs you want. Just be aware there's definitely some learning
You
curves.
might go great.
You might, throw some stuff around the shop and break some things and say some choice words and stuff like that. So that's why I recommend kind of a stage thing. And a lot of guys I know start with these and they're perfectly content and happy with these. I am. I love the design. I think they're super simple. For our friends across the pond and other locations around the world where they got goofy, crazy laws. I ain't gonna
I
get
can't even,
political.
I don't think I
I
can sell that.
I don't agree with it or anything, but they do have restrictions in certain areas. So you get good at building these and you do a good job on them and you build them where they're compliant.
Mhm.
You got people in England, you got people in
And I
Europe
think I'd have to
buying them
reduce
from
the
you.
size of that blade probably by,
I think the link's a
I
little
think
much
it,
there because you got, I
yeah,
don't know, it varies on
I
the
think
hand
you
size,
can't be more than 2 inches.
something like that.
And most English people are on it a bit. No, sorry. I got a couple friends over in England that been wanting me to get into pocket knives, but I think we won't get. Way I understand it, we can mail it over there. We're not the ones going to get in trouble. It's those that receive it on that end.
Right.
And it's stupid. That's one thing I'm thankful that we got the country we got because,
Definitely.
and granted, we still have some stupid laws that we need to be reversed. And people, if you don't like it, go live in England. I'm sure you'll like that better. And I mean, it's a pretty country. They've got some great folks there, but their government laws and everything else is you can't have this.
Yeah,
I mean,
that wouldn't
the
fly.
rest of the world is building banning knives like this. We made a TV show to build,
How to do it.
right?
We're doing how tos.
The how-to videos
They're,
and
they're passing laws how not to get, we don't want people to have those. We're
so.
showing you how. So
But anyway, I digress.
anyway, despite all that, it is what it is. So,
Unfortunately,
and a blade is better than no blade. So
yes.
if I can help them or cater to them,
Hmm.
but it's a great design. And these are allowed in places like that, within,
Well,
size
I
limits and things
think we
like
just have
that.
to
So
get the blade in. And that's one thing you told me about the pattern is you can put it and put it on your scanner,
yep.
scan it up. You can take that pattern and with computers now you can blow it up
Hmm.
or shrink it down just a little bit.
Exactly.
So
And I've done that a lot, resizing them, and that would be part of that class
that's
that
one
I
thing I
do
want to do is I got to
to
take
show how to scale it. So
the pattern you gave
if
me.
you really like this and you're like, it's awesome, but I wish it was a little bit bigger, well, do you got the pattern laying around? If
Yep.
not, we'll reproduce it and we can scale it up or
Yep.
down, whatever. So um they're fun. They're definitely a lot of fun.
That's one
I
thing
love
I
them.
gotta
So
do is I'm gonna take the pattern out because I noticed it's starting to flake. So I'm gonna take it out and go scan them,
uh-huh.
print them out on another piece of paper, and I get a little thicker piece of like get 2 or 3 of those. That way I have that
Right.
pattern because I don't think I can reproduce that unless I have what you use for the pattern. So
We'll get there. We'll get there. So then you're not winging it every time necessarily.
well, I do like I said, I do the pattern on these, but that's the one you left me.
Which I've built some various things in the past and little entrepreneurship here and there. In fact, I didn't really mention that earlier. Engraving is mostly what I do now. I spend a lot of time doing a lot of
I'll tell you
engraving
what, wow.
and doing stuff like that. That's my happy zone. That's where I hang out most of the time. Um, but the entrepreneur side of me once in a while thinks, you know what? Life's too short to have ugly tools. So that's why I do what I do.
I like that. It's like too short to have ugly
So if I
tools.
could build a good friction folder that is compliant to some of the laws, say in England or something, just using them guys as an example. But
We're gonna beat up England a little bit here.
how many Western engravers, like cowboy engravers, do they have any? Probably
Probably
not
not,
a
man.
ton. I know they got some exceptional
Oh, some
engravers.
of the rifles, the
Amazing work that comes out
shotguns.
of there. Beautiful
It's,
stuff.
100 years ago.
Inspiration for me. I
Oh
look at that
gosh.
stuff all the time. But a lot of the stuff I do is Western engraving, cowboy stuff. So I don't know. Maybe somebody out there needs to let me know, but a nice
Yeah,
silver
drop a
bolster on
comment in here and
there
I'll let
with some Western engraving, kind of a cowboy looking knife, but it's a friction folder. Like I don't think anybody in England or Europe's building those. I'd be happy to do it, just an idea. Things like that. So, and that's where it's fun because I could literally build 100 of this pattern and every one of them can be different. I didn't have to change the design. The knife is the same, but one's got bolsters on it. One's like this. One's got wood. One's got 20 different types of wood. One's got ivory or whatever, stag or you name it. You can dress it up however you want to. That's what's so fun. So we've talked slip joints, probably lockbacks
lockbacks. Yeah,
because now we have a slip joint, but when I'm using it, sometimes it still slips and closes on me and
push that little
cuts the snot out of my hand. Lost my
been there, done
fingers.
that.
Same here. So how do we prevent that? Oh, I don't know. I got an idea. Let's put a little hook or a notch in there so that it doesn't, so
Come back.
if anybody that knows lockbacks, excuse me, should kind of know what I'm talking about. And there's different shapes and geometry. There's this very word again. And ways of doing that. But basically, it's a little notch that fits into the back portion of the blade, right inside
And
of
we're getting more
here,
mechanical.
that actually holds and locks that in place.
So when you put geometry of the black of the blade, you come back and step down, and you got a little step where that
It's
blade,
got like a tooth
a tooth.
that
Yep,
fits in
like
there.
like a shear on a rifle. Kind of, you got
Yeah,
the
kind
safety
of
shears, and you got that little cut.
similar. Yep.
What was that?
I don't know.
Excuse me. Wow.
But you'll have a
I
back.
held something there.
You'll have a back spacer, and
Excuse me.
you're gonna have a spring in there as well,
Mm-hmm.
because you gotta have a little spring tension pushing
No,
up on that lock bar.
what is the spring and tail, Elijah?
The spring?
Yeah.
These are a lot easier because you don't have to build or temper springs. You can basically just buy a little strip of flat or round stock spring and cut a little section that you need to fit inside of there to put tension on that lock bar. The difference, you're going to have a notch cut right here. Need to pause it.
We're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna go get this cough out and see who's at my door. So I will be right back. We'll take a quick break.
Yep.
After break.
Break time.
Break time. All right, we're
All right.
back. A quick break. Somebody knocked on the door, salesman. I had to go get cough and get rid of water and coffee, but I should have refilled. So, oh yeah, good team right there. If you're in NFL, I don't really watch that much anymore. I've always liked my San Francisco. So I'm weird. We had a Raiders fan in here the other night, and yeah, of course, I turned it around like this every time I drink. He'd just look at me. Patrick Shadow's a great guy. So, all right, we're talking about lockbacks.
Yep.
And we're talking about spring configuration because you gotta have that little spring.
You got to have some spring tension, but you're getting into multiple parts now.
Yeah, we're getting more mechanical.
We were talking just a blade and a back spring. Now we got a blade, a lock bar with that tooth that fits into a notch into the blade, and a back spacer, which would be there anyway, but some kind of way to hold a spring to put tension on that lock bar to keep to make it work, and that is a locking knife. So people feel a little bit better using those. They're not going to come open on them. I mean, unless you completely break the knife, it's not going to fail or tear apart or cut you or anything. So obviously use common sense when you're using like any of them. But
common sense is far few.
isn't common anymore.
I ain't no kidding.
So
I blame government schools.
That's a lockback. I've seen some cool tricks with those. You're definitely getting more into the machine shop thing, which for me is not a huge issue because I own a small machine shop. So yay, that helps. But a lot of people don't.
Yeah, he likes to flaunt these tools around.
Hey, it ain't flaunting. It just, over time,
That's what she said.
I'm lucky that I have some of that stuff.
And then your partner with stuff was like, oh sure, to tease me when I got no money at the time to buy it, or I would have.
No, but I always try to remind myself where I came from.
Yeah.
I didn't have a machine shop. I didn't have access to any of that stuff.
Well, I've got that little lathe. You showed me a little tricks on that.
Most of the time I build or design something, I'm trying to do it with that in mind. That people aren't going to have a whole machine shop laying there. If you do, awesome, but not everybody does. And then the next thing, not everybody knows how to run it. So, those definitely come in handy when you're doing logbacks and things like that. If you're going to get real serious with it, you're going to want some serious tools for doing logbacks.
Yes.
They've been around a long time. I've seen some very traditional, really cool designs with those. They've gone lots of different directions with them. There's the most traditional one. You've got kind of a notch cut in the back right here that you press down on that. Most people know what I'm talking about. I think Case
He's got one out the shop.
Old Timer and a bunch of manufacturers build those. Gerber, they use them all the time. And that's what you're pretty familiar with. There is the event where you're using the knife sometimes and you got a bunch of meat back here like I do, and it'll press down on that, release it, and that'll wake you up.
Big palms.
Yeah.
Big palms, big head, small.
So it forces you to, it happens to you once, and then it forces you to use it kind of funny. And so, rather than that, I've seen some cool designs, older ones, a couple variations where they actually move it up here. I've got one that looks like the grip of a 1911.
Really?
Cool. It's a fat, chunky thing, but it's just awesome. So I can't ever get rid of it. And right up here, it's got
The little.
the stud that you just press down right here with your thumb on the side, and
Mm.
that's what releases the lock bar. So the lock bar is still a long piece to give you leverage in that because you got spring tension on the back. But rather than having that notch and you have to press on it back here, it's up here on the side. And it's I think it's on both sides. So if you're a lefty or righty, whatever, it's pretty cool. I'll have to bring it in sometime. And you just push down on that, it raises the bar, pun intended, and then it'll fold on you. So there's definitely so
That's definitely a few years out.
when I first, you mentioned stories a little bit. So when I was in the army, playing army, I did get stationed in Italy, and I didn't really do a ton of knives prior to that. I fooled around with them a little bit, mostly out of necessity.
Part of Italy were you?
Livorno,
Oh,
so it's like Tuscany region.
okay.
I was stationed there. But anyway, and I was there as an MP, and so
Favorite people on military personnel,
I
especially
love,
Marines.
yeah, I love firearms, always have. But I never thought much about knives a ton until the MP thing. I had to use them more a little bit and different things. And so I didn't seriously consider them until I was there. Reason being is it was Italy, foreign language. I didn't speak Italian. They didn't expect me to. I learned a little bit,
I got
all the
there.
bad words first, of
I look
course.
like a lot of beast here. My hair everywhere, so sorry.
You're good. But we had an interpreter, a couple of them. And one of them was an older gentleman. Pino was his name.
Shout out to Pino.
Yeah, he's still in Italy. He's the one that kind of got me started on it, really, because he made knives, fixed blades. He didn't really do folders, but he did fixed blades, and he did some amazing work. I'll tell you that.
I remember you sharing me one
And
of
he'd
those.
bring them in, he'd show them to me. We kind of do show and tell sometimes. I worked a lot of night shifts and boring stuff. And so he'd show them, he called them his kids. He's like, look at my new kids.
That's
So
awesome.
he was very passionate about what he did. And he lived in an apartment like a lot of people do there. He showed me his shop one time, all kinds of innovative little ideas that this guy had, because it was literally like a tiny corner of a tiny garage, if that. And so he didn't have a lot of space, but that guy could make use of space like nobody's business.
I think we're definitely spoiled here because we
And
got a lot
yeah,
of
I
space.
got room and I fill it up. I got crap everywhere. I'm always trying to clean
Right,
it
and
up
same with the
and
shop. I'm always
trying to
moving.
organize and
Mhm.
figure it out. And this dude had a tiny little space, maybe the size of this little corner over here behind the anvil. But I'm like, where do you put everything? This is nuts. Well, he saved jars, just as an example, and he would take the metal lid, put it up under the
Yeah,
counter, put a screw through it, and then take the jars and put screws, fit it, all kinds of stuff. He had like hundreds of those underneath this counter that he'd organize and he'd just put it on there and they're all hanging on there like, that's pretty cool. I mean, maybe that's an old idea. I hadn't seen it up to that point. I was impressed. I was like, that's pretty neat. All kinds of things like that, just as an example. And he did the same thing on his knives. Very creative, very innovative guy. And so he piqued my interest a little bit. And
well,
he asked me a lot of questions about machining and different things like that and some of my background. And so it got me thinking, like, how could I apply that to, because I always thought wrongly before that knives are kind of boring. They've been around forever. That's like the first
and
tool that man came up
and that's
with.
I
And
get the
anything and everything that could be done with a knife has already been done.
yep. Um,
But I couldn't have been more wrong.
and it's kind of funny, you get into the people, the gun culture of the gun,
Right.
and not to beat them up. It's fun to be in the gun culture because, and we've got a lot of things in our country. We got knives and we got knife culture and gun culture,
Yep.
all over the spectrum. Big time hunters and everything else. They'll spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and I had them kind of go $200 for a knife. That's a little much. I can go to, but the thing is, what they forget, the gun does the work one job.
Yep.
It does the talking, puts the animal down. The
Oh yeah.
knife does all the work.
Yep.
And um,
The gun has one job.
yeah, the one job, and the knife's got the multiple
Like
jobs.
a tool, but
It's breaking the animal, gut and breaking down the animal. And I remember you met Cameron
yep.
Pearson. Funny story here. We went hunting one year with him, and the next weekend, it was the last weekend, his daughter got a nice little buck,
Okay.
and they had forgot their knives.
Uh-oh.
Well, the only thing they had was a Gerber,
Hmm.
and they end up cleaning that Gerber, and it's like she's telling me about it. It's like, were you in the red truck? Yeah. Are you in the red truck now? Well, yeah, I'm sitting in the passenger seat for a minute. Reach down to the jockey box, and this is the next day.
Hmm.
And he opens the jockey box. I left my knife in the truck. So they gutted that whole deer with a little 2.5 inch blade, which you can do.
Yeah, not ideal.
Not ideal, but we've all been there. Um, but just to throw a funny story, that about this, that, and the other, the right tool for the right job. Sometimes a little bit bigger tool does a better job, but space wise, you got this little corner. You gotta learn how to like managing your time. You got
Yep.
space management. That's what we're looking for.
Oh yeah.
That's the word. Look at me use big words, folks.
There you go. Getting up there, right? You're raising the bar.
Raising the bar or raising the cholesterol, one of the two.
So, both. That's funny.
Ouch.
All I had to do was look in the glove box.
Yep.
There it is. So
And I told him that, and he opens that up, and he's like, "This shit."
that's similar to another comparison I've used sometimes with the tool thing.
Yes.
Is where everybody's seen the little Gerber tools, the pliers. They're cool. They're handy. But I always use the example like, well, could you change a tire with that?
Well,
Yeah, it's gonna suck. That's a bad day.
yep.
I'd rather have the right tools for it, but yeah, you could probably manage it.
Have the tire iron in the back.
But if I got the lug wrench and, obviously it makes it easier. So anyway, lots of comparisons that way, but yes. But I like that. The gun does one job.
Yep.
But that is a fair point because anyone out there can look around any room or wherever you're at, unless you're standing in the middle of the woods somewhere watching a podcast. I doubt it.
I don't know. Starlink. We got Starlink now.
That's true.
And I'm
reach
gonna,
out everywhere.
I'd be glad when it gets a little bit better for our area because I'm going to switch to Starlink.
But look around wherever you're at, whether it's an office building, room, anywhere, something had to be cut in that room. The walls, the 2x4s, the framing, anything and everything at some stage had to be cut.
With a knife or a knife like.
If you're doing food prep, you're using a
Yeah.
knife. If you're
buttering a
doing
piece of toast.
outdoorsy stuff, you're trying to build a fire, you're buttering a piece of toast, you're just about anything and everything. We got knives around us everywhere and we don't even think about it. We use them every day. So anyway, that's where I was wrong because I'm like, those are boring. Anything could be done with a knife, they've already done it. Nope. There's all kinds of room for improvement with modern materials, with handle shapes, the ergonomics to it, another big word, all kinds of stuff you can do.
We're shouting big words out, and I apologize.
We are. The shape.
So she said.
Yeah. In shape, out of shape.
In shape, out of shape, not shaped long enough.
A shape. Appears a shape.
Yeah, honey, it's not the size that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I can clean a deer better with a buck knife than a toothpick.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's squirrel moment.
Squirrel.
Anyway, back on to your friend from Italy.
So he kind of got me more into it. He piqued my interest for sure. And so I started fooling around with a little bit more. Fixed blades, to figure it out. Messed a few up. Spent a lot of money on a stock piece of Damascus, stainless Damascus.
Oof.
Cool stuff, but hard to work with.
That brings up a story. We'll get into that guy.
One, but
remember that guy?
Here
a few back with the caster.
Oh goodness,
the bronze guy. We'll get into that in a minute. That's funny.
That's
funny. Let's get into this. We'll dive into that one. That one was funny.
Yeah, to go there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Speaking of impracticality,
so
where was I?
Sorry about that. I just reminded me of that story.
He piqued my interest, so I made some scrap metal, and I decided that I didn't like that scrap metal, so I think I could do better than that. And I kept working on it. I kept at it, kept doing it, and they started getting better. Then I wanted to do the friction folders, and he piqued my interest there too because he introduced me to what in that region of Italy they called the love knife. I know, sounds kind of goofy. You can go, "Oh, what is this guy talking about?" It's really neat, actually. It could be just about whatever, but it's basically a folding knife. You're out of the picture there, but there you go.
Well, they don't want to look at me anyway.
It's a folding knife, but it's a cool tradition they have there where when a couple get married, they gift the gentleman, the groom, the guy, a folding knife. They call it a love knife because it's to protect his family. And so they
Kind
became
of
very simple back
yeah.
in the day, but they were very simple. It could be a fixed blade or whatever, but then it turned into a folding knife
Nice.
traditionally, and then they started getting more elaborate. And they had some
That is cool. I didn't
really
know that.
ornate, cool pieces over there. And there's some traditional areas in Italy, Scarpia, if I'm pronouncing it right, in different regions where they've made folders like forever, for a long
Mhm.
time. And it's just a tradition. It's what they do.
Well, like it kind of goes back to when we talked about the
Yep.
Romans
Right.
and the friction folder back then. So okay, yeah,
But for every region over there, they have a specific design knife,
kind of like a
a
family
style,
crest.
and it's just kind of their thing. And that's what most people that live in the area carry, like the patata, wherever they live, the southern part, if I remember. That you're
Somebody
gonna
knows
see
his
those a lot.
geography.
Well, I used to, but anyway,
They got,
The Italians are amazing. You ask us sometimes about U.S.
got great.
history, and we're
Oh,
like, oh, you ask the Italians, they'll, oh yeah, 11th century, they'll just rattle it off like nothing. You know, they can tell you who was who and what was happening and everything. It's
that's
amazing.
cool.
Here we ask people why the Liberty Bell got a crack in it, and we tell them because it fell off the truck or something, you know.
Well, I think it had to do with the casting, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah, there's a story. But anyway,
Yeah.
so kudos to them. They're up on their history. But uh it was cool to me. I like history anyway. It makes it more interesting to
Now
me.
I want to go to
So
Italy. Friends of mine went over there. They I can't remember the knife maker. He makes folders. He's really big time name over there in Italy. They were. He said it was like 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. They're drinking champagne, listening to country music, making folding knives.
yeah.
So,
Yep. Well, and that's the funny thing is you assume they're super deep into their own culture, and they are to a point,
well,
but they admire our stuff too.
too.
So
And I
Pino,
vice versa.
my friend Pino, he loved Western stuff. I I
Nice.
had an old Cimarron catalog with some of the old single action revolvers and stuff. I brought it in to show him a bluing job that
Hmm.
they did on one of them, like a charcoal blue.
Ooh.
Beautiful piece. It looked awesome. But that's why I wanted to show it to him because I'm like, dude, you should try some different finishes and stuff. Because he worked with a lot of carbon steels and that. That's what he, liked.
And gun
And
blowing
I
is
was like,
definitely
dude, try
interesting
doing a gun
process.
blowing on it. That look awesome on a knife, just throwing ideas around. And I brought that in and he wanted to keep it. It was like gun porn to him. That's what he was into that
Yeah.
thing. He was drooling over that thing for like weeks. He's like, can I keep this? I'm like, sure, you can get it. Because they got a lot of restrictions and a lot of laws on that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So, but he loved cowboy stuff. He loved the Western thing. He loved Texas. He loved all of it. And so I wasn't doing Western engraving at the time. I wish I was. I could have helped him out more, but he loved that stuff. And so it was fun because we'd collaborate a little bit and I'd share ideas that he could try on a knife and he'd do it. And he was like, yeah, this isn't going to look anything Italian, but I love it because it looks cowboy. So
Mm.
he loved that stuff. Um, and I'd pull ideas from him. And that's where he kind of taught me the region thing, where you got
Love
the
knife.
piccata,
Mhm.
the Zawava, which is the one where I lived at in Livorno,
And that's a
which
different type of
it has
love knife, I guess,
a
or
more of a curve back here. The handle looks a little similar to like the Marine officer sword
yes.
handle, you know what I'm talking
Okay.
about? But the blade up here has a deep curve in it.
A heavy
A
clip point.
recurve, yeah, a heavy clip point and like a real deep belly on the blade. And so they're cool looking. Look up those Zawavas sometimes. A cool
So
knife.
kind of a cross between a um a clip point and a very a Skinner, a fat belly Skinner kind of thing.
Kind of a hybrid. So, and hand was useful. So he gave me one, not because we were getting married, obviously, but he had an older one laying around. He gave it to me as a pattern, and I still got it. So I need to bring it
Sweet.
in sometime and show you. Nothing fancy, nothing to get excited about, but that's what got
Still
me
a cool
going.
story.
And so it's torn apart in a box, and I still got all the parts. And I replicated that. I couldn't do a slip joint. It was a slip joint one, and I didn't know nothing about making a spring at the time, so I didn't even try it. Didn't even go there. So rather, I mimicked the pattern and turned it into, ta-da, a friction folder. And he loved it. It was awesome. It was a big, ugly, clunky thing, but he encouraged me. It had heavy stainless bolsters on it and everything. It worked. It was a nice one, I thought, but it was just a little thick and heavy, beginner mistakes. And he loved it. He thought it was awesome. He encouraged me and stuff. And so I just kept going. And I've refined it. And so I make a folder every once in a while and pick it up now and then. But most of the time, these are more fun. A lot
Oh yeah,
less
I'm
stress
enjoying it.
involved. And so even though I've done all the other ones, I end up going full circle and I just mostly do these anymore. I have done the lockbacks. There are some little tricks of the trade you learn if you're going to build a lot of them. I seen a guy gang mill them basically. So he had a milling machine. He took all the blades and made a bunch of blade blanks.
It's
Bleh,
tongue tied.
bleh, bleh.
With the
Yep.
ring, it comes this way a little bit. Your head,
Rip my head off.
you were the headless knife
The
blade
headless
mate.
dude. Anyway, so he'd stack them all together, get them all lined up, and that notch that little tooth fits into,
Mm-hmm.
he'd just set the mill up and get it going and just run a line right through every one of those, all 10 of them or however many he was doing that were clamped in the vise. I was like, oh, there you go, just gang mill the thing, do a whole bunch of one shot. And it's precise, they're accurate, they're done, but he was selling like you. He was
Mm-hmm.
building them in quantity and selling them and that kind of thing. So if that's your thing and that's really what you want to do, if you again want to invest in some of the right tools and
Mm-hmm.
setups and things like that. The engineering thing did help me with that. The manufacturing engineer side of things, that's like a whole specialty. They literally have somebody that goes in
Very,
there,
very special.
well, their own thing, that they'll literally go in there and tell you
I just prefer those
how.
special ed
Like,
kind of
yeah, they
things.
are special ed, but they'll tell you how to set up a whole shop, the
Mm-hmm.
most efficient way to do it, all that kind of stuff. They get real nerdy into that stuff. So, but that's if you're going to build them quantity. If you're doing onesies, twosies, just
And
little stuff,
that's where I
they're
like to.
fun. And slip joints too. You can do onesies, twosies with slip joints too, and it's fine. But lockbacks, it gets a little more complex
Okay.
because you're getting more parts, you're getting more. And then I'll jump into the next one would be like liner locks and frame locks.
Ooh,
Yeah. And
yeah.
now if you really like learning how to,
Torment yourself.
yeah, if you like geometry and really learning how to set a darn it, what's it called? The ball, I fell
The
down.
speed
No.
lock.
Well,
You bump it and it kind of
the
pops.
little ball bearing that's in
Oh
there, not
yeah.
ball bearing, that's the wrong term, but the
Um.
little, what the heck is it called? I can't think. Oh, well, I left my brain at home. Anyway, the ball detent. There it is. I got it. If you like learning how to set those and use those, great, because you're gonna need them. If not, it just doesn't work. Worth a darn. And that's a whole different specialty, something else you got to learn, and different sizes and how to seat those properly and all that. For those unfamiliar, a liner lock and a frame lock, the principle's the same.
Ah, that's what it is.
There you go.
The computer arrow.
Tilting kind of thing. But a liner lock, a frame lock, same
Yeah.
principle.
We'll get a different camera and
You've got a liner, you've got a slot cut in there, and that's kind of it has to bend. That's what your spring is.
yeah.
It's your spring and your lock at the same
Yeah, I looked at
time.
those and then them are a pain in the ass.
Most of your liner locks are cheap junk. That's what most people are familiar with. There are very good quality liner lock. If you take the time and attention and build them properly, you can make a very nice liner lock. And they're very smooth and there's nothing wrong with the design. They
Mhm.
work well. The frame lock's the same thing, but they're thicker. You're usually using a frame. So frame locks are cool, but you're more limited to like metal handles. You're not going to do a lot of wood or decorative stuff unless you
Mhm.
only do it on one side of the knife. It's just how they are.
Now, what's the difference between those what they call the little auto locks where you get a push or auto openers, whatever you push the little button and kind of it's
Yep.
got that coil spring in there, can cut in it doesn't throw it all the way open and lock. You can just kind of
That would be the other Italian one everybody's familiar with, the stiletto. I think
okay,
you're talking about.
kind of the
They
stiletto.
function the same. You can do them in different shapes and
Mhm.
styles, but those are autos or automatic knives, and lots of laws on those depending on where you are.
Mm,
Utah, thankfully, we can own those. You
yeah,
can
thank
more or less
God.
do whatever you want with
We're
those.
not California yet. We're
Um,
heading. But,
I actually knew a few farmers and stuff like that that really like those. Because of one guy's story where the baler was acting up on him one time. He was baling hay
mhm.
and running the baler, and it was acting up on him. And he admitted, he's like, yeah, it was stupid, but I wasn't thinking because the thing jammed up. It was a simple jam. And I reached in there to grab that cord and kind of pull it off to the side a little bit or whatever to unjam
And
it.
it grabbed
And
him.
it grabbed his hand. Didn't break or tear him up too bad, but he was stuck. So there's nobody else out there. The tractor's running, just sitting
The
there,
thing's
and
going.
he's stuck behind the baler that's running with his arm stuck and he can't get it out. because he's got that twine wrapped around him and
Mm-hmm.
he'd nowhere to go. He happened because he always carried an automatic knife, a button lock, I think. He grabbed it, could push it open with one hand and cut that twine and
Right.
got himself out really quick.
Well, there's a cautionary tale right there.
So that knife saved his butt that day, obviously. But if it was a lockback, I mean, I suppose you can go pirate style and
Yeah.
grab it, but it would have taken longer. It's just the nature that he was able to do that so
Yeah.
fast that he swears he'll never carry another knife
Well, then that goes back to
other than that.
the shop saying,
So he
a
always
knife's a good
carries
friend
something
when you
else.
have no other. And that in that
Exactly.
situation, a knife was definitely a
Definitely.
good friend.
Definitely.
So
So there are attributes to that. There are some mechanically, there's some weak points to them. There's the OTFs or out the front models.
yeah,
They're cool, but
they're
mechanically they're
cool.
not the
That's
strongest. I've seen some good, nice examples of them. They're
mhm.
expensive. I know that.
Well, more.
Um,
Well, it's like
like
anything else.
Paragon makes really nice ones. There's some manufacturers, but
The more higher the quality is, the more expensive it got because they are going to
yeah,
be engineered to work a lot better than the old cheap speed. Oh, look, I'm a kid.
they are. But a poor design is a poor design.
True.
So you're always going to have some limitations with it, no matter what you do. So
I think there's a lot of limitations to a lot of things,
there
but
are. But what are you
there's
doing with it? It's back to the tool thing,
yes, the right tool for the
So
right job. In that instance of the Baylor story, that the little
that saved his tail.
yeah,
Do I want to gut a elk or deer with a stiletto? No, obviously not.
no.
Not really. There's much better tools for the job, obviously. So, but if that's all you got,
An
then that's what
emergency
you got.
situation.
Can I
So
butter my toast with it? Sure. If I want to be hardcore, I guess. I'm sitting there with a stiletto, eating my toast.
honestly, I would do that,
I
especially,
would.
or if you really want to impress somebody, you do crocodile, then you pull out the buoy.
Yeah, that's a noise.
No, that's not butter knife.
Yep, pretty much.
Like that one right there I got there. We'll check that one out later, but we'll dive into that in a bit.
Okay.
So,
So that's not all inclusive by any means. Hopefully nobody fell asleep, but that's more or less the world of folders. There are other designs. They've gone full circle. I've seen some creative individuals out there that re-looked the friction folder and said, but I like these, but I want it to lock.
mhm,
And they figured out nifty little ways to no tang. He just left a beefier area, some more material
mhm.
on the back end of this blade, and he had it in the open position. And where you got that little stop pin right there,
It shoots it a
I
little
think
spring.
they drilled a hole through it all the way through
Mhm,
and had a little pin that with a hole that drilled into that liner right there
mhm.
with a little whatever, a catch on it or something. So it stayed in there. So it just had a little whatever, a little round piece kind of sticking up right there. And so what you could do is open that knife, pull that little pin out, and put it in there. It's now a locked knife.
That's a lot of work.
It not too bad actually. It's
Yeah.
fairly simple,
Well, I
but
mean,
the issue to me was
that pin
you
goes,
lose that pin, you're
pin,
screwed.
right?
That now became the Jesus pin, which in the Army, that's what we talk about for the 50 cal. You tear the
Mhm,
50 cal down, you pull that whole bolt out.
mhm.
There's a little pin that just drops out. We call it the Jesus pin because if you lose that, oh Jesus, you're in big trouble because that whole thing is useless without that
That
little
little
pin.
pin.
So do not lose that when you pull the bolt out. Anyway, that's what I
There's
was
another
thinking.
cautionary
That's
tale.
what I was thinking on that design I saw. I thought that's a neat approach. It's a good idea, but if you ever lose that pin, you're in trouble. So yeah, a lanyard or
It is,
something,
yeah.
but now you got a little pin flopping around. Anyway, so I don't know that you could integrate some kind of little slot up here or something that you
You
just slide
slide forward.
forward like a shotgun safety, or
That
I don't
actually
know.
that's a cool idea.
There's all kinds of ways
I
to
mean,
get creative,
you know what you could
find
do
other
on
approaches to
that with the slider part,
it. Hmm.
instead of using the friction folder style blade, you could use the slip joint blade. They would slide right up that per. Actually,
Yeah.
I think they make knives like that. You just slide up, don't they?
There was kind of a combination. Everybody thinks the liner lock is like brand new. The
Yeah, it's
electrician's
not.
knife that Case made a long time ago.
No.
That's what that was. It was a liner lock.
Yeah.
It was brass, but it worked.
Well, I'm just
And so,
like you said, your safety. You just kind of
just an idea, like a slide.
well, that
But
there.
how do you solve the issue of how do I lock that open? Well, now you're relooking locking knives.
You use the like I said, you use the slip joint blade, with a little thing, even though it's a hybrid between the slip joint and the friction folder, you can just slide that up there a little
Yeah,
bit.
it'd probably work.
I still would put a catch pin there.
That just recess that so that it
Mhm.
slides right over the top.
Yeah, right there, and it just,
There you go.
you could have a little spring in there if you wanted it to
See, you
make
already
it.
got the wheels turning.
Oh, here we
So-
go. All right, let's head to the shop.
Right? But that's the point. That's the whole thing is these can be fun and
The
there's
point.
still a lot of yeah, raise the bar.
Is it real sharp though?
I don't know. Don't use sharp knives you cut yourself. Make them dull, right?
No, no, no. I have
I-
never cut myself with a sharp knife.
Yeah.
I have cut myself more with knives that are not heat treated. I mean, I've ripped with right here. That was stupid. I was trying to use a knife I wasn't stamped,
Mm.
and I was trying to break a zip tie. This story goes back because my daughter here a while back was trying to cut a zip tie with a knife, and the zip tie broke too fast, and the knife went into the knee
Yeah.
right here. She got nice little 6 stitches,
Yeah.
cried like a little girl. It was kind of funny. I was in the
Initiation.
went in the hospital to check her in. She stayed out in the car with my mom. I guess she was out there. Grandma, tell me please, is giving birth worse than this? This is her. Yes, honey. Giving birth is a lot worse than getting stabbed in the knee. I've been stabbed in the leg or cutting the chainsaw in the belly. I don't know about birth. Thank God I'm a man. So
Cut and stabbed hurts. I can't attest to the other one.
apparently getting stabbed in the leg doesn't hurt as bad as giving birth. So shout out to the women there. So
There you go.
it's squirrel moment. Sorry. Back to that's a cool idea. Maybe we'll have to try
That's
that.
just a thought. So I think there's lots of people out there that can explore this more.
Mhm.
You know, I was wrong. The people that are knives are boring. They've
Use
already
a-
done everything they can with them. No, there's lots of room for improvement. There's lots of room for different ideas, different approaches, and half of the time we see manufacturers build something and they think it's like really innovative and it is sometimes it's really cool ideas. But there are some really cool ideas that never made it out the
Mhm.
door because it might not be popular or the timing, you know? And so functionally, it might work great,
Mhm.
but they just think, I don't think people are going to like that. Somebody somewhere made an executive decision and said, nah, I don't think people will like that.
Well, it's back to that idea, the slide thing. I just had it popped in my head. Sorry, the gears are now turning on
Yeah,
this.
you're good.
Here we go. So you pull that back, the blade opens, locks.
Mhm.
You slide up for it, locks.
Right.
But when you pull it back again, it pulls that and it slides and locks it. It's a
Mhm.
dual purpose. So
It is.
I'm sitting there like, well, how would you hold that back? Like, well, it doesn't have to.
And it's already been done.
It'll hold
I
it
think-
open
I think
and close.
It's already been done. I
I know.
think Black and Collins did one and it was mounted on the side.
Yeah,
And it's a great idea. It just never really
I
took
think
off.
I think on the top part would be more.
It just never really took off. I think because some people said, well, yeah, but people aren't familiar with that. And it is kind of what you get used to. I'm a
Mhm.
creature of habit. I mean, there's things I've used that they're not my favorite, but I'm so familiar with them that that's what I use, you know, because I already know it. I don't have to relearn something else, especially with firearms. You train with something long enough, you get used to it. Yeah, there's other platforms that I like. So I have to decide, do I like it enough to invest the time and effort and money into training and practicing and spending enough time with it to be able to do it in my sleep and be familiar with it enough to replace whatever the other one was, right? I don't like the Beretta. I want to switch to this, or I want to, whatever it might be. It's similar with these two because they're tools. To me,
Yep.
they're no different. And so the back lock with it mounted back here, well, I don't like it because I have had it come open because I got all this, back here on my palm. And so every time I'm using that knife, if I'm not thinking about it, it'll, pop loose on me. So not my favorite. I prefer it up here somewhere or just not there at all and somewhere on the side or out of the way. So if I'm going to build one, I'm going to put it out of the way. Other people see it and they're like, wow, that's a really novel idea. I'm like, well, I wish I could take credit for it, but I'm using what's already been done.
Yeah.
It just never was real popular because everybody's so used to seeing it back here. You do something new, sometimes the masses are like, well, that's new, that's weird, I don't like it. Why don't you like it? Give it a chance. Try it for a week or so. Carry it around for a while. Nothing worse than these guys. So yeah, jumping back to the MP thing and some of that stuff. I'm not the know all be all by any means, but I've been around a minute. And so I get these, tactical Tommies that approach me
Mm.
sometimes, and they like to sit there and tell
Well,
me that,
Dan's
oh,
idea,
well,
this is kind of a Dan DeMille's idea of a tactical,
yeah,
I mean, with tactical knife
their take on it.
with a flair to it,
Mhm.
with style. Kill them so
Aesthetics.
nicely with style.
Yep.
People opening them up with style. That's the word I'm going for.
Well, and when you start selling stuff, if it's ugly, it's ugly.
Hmm.
It's really hard to sell
Yeah, but
something
there's some things that are
that's
ugly
just
that's cool
nasty
and they're
looking.
still
Oh,
cool.
that's still cool.
Yeah.
It isn't, it's not, it doesn't take away from the functionality or anything. It's awesome. It's just weird looking or ugly. And so
Yep.
people are like, I'm not buying that. It's weird looking. Well,
Until you try it, then you're like, oh yeah.
the ugly gal can still cook dinner. I mean,
Yep.
it's whatever you want to call it. So, but it's a tool.
I gotta get a different
Yeah.
camera.
Oh, yeah, eventually. But anyway, so yeah, they just never really took off. Explore those, research them. There's a couple books I think a guy put out. I can't remember his name. Wish I could give him more credit. That I used in the past just for ideas. I think he got a whole collection of patents that have done on folding knives and just compiled them all into a couple of books. And so it's a cool thing to kind of page through and come up with ideas. They're not produced anymore. They were made and then they just kind of
Kind of
fizzled
fizzled
out,
out.
and so
Didn't
and
catch it at
so
the
there's
right time.
no shame in revisiting some of those. Some of them you'll build it and you'll be like, okay, I see why that didn't work so well. But others you'd be like, why didn't they use that? That's awesome. Why didn't they actually make that mainstream or large scale? They just
That
didn't
but might have
sometimes.
been
So
on the right time. And with the folding knives and everything else, I've noticed when these people are messaging me about, hey, about a reblade, and I got that they start in their email, I'm reading like, wow, this guy really knows about folding knives here. And they're collectors and everything else.
uh-huh.
It's like gun nuts, or you get into that genre or football fans and they know everything about the team and the
Right.
history of it. It's kind of cool to see that. And it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, that's cool. I like to scrape at the sides, but I don't like to dive down that Donja.
Yeah.
I mean, I got enough useless information up here as it is. It's
Right.
like, why do we, when somebody sneezes, why we say bless you? Well, it comes out of the Black Plague times in the Dark Ages because these people start sneezing or coughing or
And
other,
they're sick.
and they're sick. I say I bless you because if you're going to probably going to start, you're going to be dead in a week because you got the Black Plague.
Right.
I say, oh, bless you. I'm blessing you so when you die, you go to heaven. So that's where that comes from. Useless knowledge moment.
That's some Trivial Pursuit stuff there.
Right?
Here's your pie slice. You
Yeah.
win.
So, one thing I kind of like what I'd like to talk about with the podcast as well is, mental health.
Yeah.
We all go through it, maker stress and everything else. You're retired military. I don't want to use the word former military. Former just seems weird.
Yeah,
Reti-
it follows you the rest of your life. Once you're
yeah,
there,
you're
what they say,
military.
once a Marine, always a Marine. So credit to
Yeah.
them.
Maybe when they're out of the Marines, all they're really good at doing is getting things pregnant.
Crayons.
Yeah, eating crayons too. So, one of the things that my dad's military, retired, not
Yep.
retired. He went to
Ex-Army.
ex-army, went and did his tour out.
Yep.
2 year, I think, about 18, 2 year kind of deal.
Right.
There, filled his contract from being drafted and everything. Knife making has helped him a lot in some areas. There's some areas probably not so much. But like I said, I've grown up with a veteran. I've been around veterans. I understand it on the outside looking. I didn't really understand it when I was a younger kid. And guys at our age who've
Yeah.
gone through combat, like Shane and such, and a few others that I've talked to, shared their stuff and opened up things like, oh, okay, that explains this growing up and everything.
Right.
So, what is knife making, your engineering and such, has benefited you and on those days?
So, well, just a random thought, one variation. Like I could sit and talk with your dad,
Hmm.
and we could probably relate on
Yes,
quite
and
a
then there's
few
that relation.
things. But his war was completely different than mine,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. And
Yes, that's
so
true.
on my generation, so everybody else out there that
Well,
was in
Vietnam
Iraq
veterans didn't
or
have shit when they come
Afghanistan
back.
in the same time, and even Iraq and Afghanistan had radical differences between them. You got mountain warfare going on in Iraq, it was just a whole different animal. And so different protocol, you name it. And depends on what their job was too,
Hmm.
what they were doing. So you can relate on a general level, but then when you really get into the weeds, like you were
Yep.
discussing the details and stuff, he would have experienced very different things than I did.
Jungle warfare. I mean, they did have.
But killing people, watching them die, and having to do unpleasant things, and some of that stuff it's and you
Mhm.
do it in the jungle, you do it in the desert. I mean, it don't vary a whole lot. So, yeah, I had to do some not so fun stuff over there in some ways, but uh,
I'm
knives helped quite a bit. And I was still active duty in Italy, like I mentioned, when I kind of started getting into that. And a lot of people think, well, so you're just distracting yourself. Well, yes and no.
so
I'm
that fidget
taking
spinner.
kind of, but I haven't used for a fidget spinner.
Yeah.
I'd rather something that can cut somebody or,
Yeah, it's a bit like
it's a
me and weight
tool, it's
loss. I'd rather go
useful.
work on a knife and make something I can see the
Yes.
progress. Weight loss is long, slow, and it drives me nuts.
Yes.
So ADHD, but
Same,
sorry.
same kind of deal. So, um, I guess it's kind of like looking for purpose in a way. And
Hmm.
I don't know about everybody else, transitioning out of the army was hard at first because I did it for so long and not just creature of habit. I mean, you're institutionalized. You get up every morning, you got the same routines, you go
Routine.
party on the weekend, do your thing, but you're still on call basically all the time. You're always checking your phone. You're always, especially as an MP, holy crap.
I
And
can only
so,
imagine,
yeah,
especially if you're next to a
yeah,
Marine base,
we didn't get days
right?
off. Your day off was on call, and that kind of stuff. And so it just different, different environment entirely. And so I got out and I finally got myself around to understanding that, well, there are worse things than not being in the army. So get over it, just transition, relax, get into
Retool and
something
take
else.
that
And
knowledge,
yes,
your discipline, and everything else, and we're going
exactly.
to move it into
Right.
civilian
And
life.
honestly, it took me a couple of years to kind of figure that out and go through that. And for me, I was so I guess one thing I thought of was in the army, you got rank structure. Well, every branch of the military, you got rank structure.
Hmm.
So you walk in the room, whatever rank you're wearing demands or commands that amount of respect or
Hmm.
should, because we already know that's how much experience you've got.
Hmm.
We already know where you're coming from. We already know your position. We already know what you're there to do. Everybody knows your role. They already know what to expect. They already know. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The civilians don't have that.
Nope.
You just got Joe Snuffy walking up on you, and I don't know
The
this guy.
the common you
I don't
used
know
to
this
have this
guy.
common respect. You had that
Yes,
the common respect you give somebody for it, somebody like that. That's kind
right.
of in civilian world.
Yes.
We don't have that much anymore, so
Unfortunately, no.
mhm.
Like maybe the Wild West had more respect
I
because
think so
you
too.
were more polite when the guy's wearing a gun.
Exactly.
You have more manners. So anymore, I don't know what happened with our society, but it was definitely a tougher transition. I don't know about everybody else. It just that's one of the things that I
I think it's
noticed.
personal. Each soldier has
Right.
their
And it was two-way. So I see your rank. I know what to expect from you in
mhm.
certain ways. I already know what your role is, but you know what mine is too. And that was difficult for me. Which maybe sound, well, this guy's an ego trip or something. No, I think I was just so used to it because I worked my way up and I was, more senior when I got out. And so I got a civilian job and I walked in there with the like I got my notes, I got
Mhm.
my stuff. I'm there to do a job and I know what I'm there to do. And I walk in there and I'm gonna try to do it. And I got all these other people that
Different
just
variables
totally
that
different
yeah.
dynamics, and I'm sitting here going through a rough time going, well, who the heck is this guy? What do let me do my thing. That's what I'm here to do. I do know what I'm talking about, believe it or not. Give me a chance and you'll see.
Mhm.
Uh, that kind of thing. So yeah, kind of an attitude adjustment on my part and some of that, and just trying to get used to that, in a sense.
And how's that? And then like you
And
said,
so jumping into these, um, that's my happy space.
mhm.
That's why I do engraving too, is I can pretty much zone out and just sit there and engrave and I'm good. It's like
And
my therapy almost, if you
mhm.
will. I hate to call it that, but it is.
Work
And so
it's occupational
it
therapy.
is. And to me, well, I can become an alcoholic or drugs, or I can sit there and feel depressed and, feel sorry for myself all the time or whatever, or relive things or dwell on it or whatever.
Mhm.
Or I can just realize when I go to the gas station, I smell diesel fuel, I'm going to be on edge a little bit for a minute or so. Little things like that you learn, but
Mhm.
I'm expecting and I already know that. So I'm kind of in third person. I'm sitting here going, okay, I know why I'm reacting this way. I know what this is, whatever, and I go do something else or turn some music on, distract myself, and life goes on.
Mhm.
I can't physically rewire myself or physiology wise
Big
change that.
words.
Big words. I
Sorry.
probably didn't even say it right, but I can't totally rewire myself. Certain things you're going to react the way you do. I go to Walmart. Yeah, I'm still looking at the roof line for crying out loud. It's just habits. But to me, some of the
And
world
I kind
says,
of,
well, you need to stop doing that. That's not healthy. And I think really I've adapted it to where it is very healthy. I look at vehicles differently. I approach things differently. I approach homes and houses differently. And I do all of that because of habit. And I've done it for so long, especially as an MP and just being in the
and I kind
army.
of grew up around that, and so I understand what you're saying there.
So when someone says, well, you probably shouldn't do that. And I say, well, maybe you probably should,
Should, yeah,
because to
right.
me, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Oh,
I'm aware. Maybe it's a little hyper sometimes,
situational
but I'm
awareness.
aware. I
Yeah.
know what's going on and paying attention to it. So, and I'm already trying to think of a game plan and things like that. So, yeah, it can wear you out some days, but for the most part, I'd rather be a little worn out than to be caught unaware,
Okay.
you know?
And I've listened to, and what I'm not talking about, I've listened to, and I'm not no expert. I've had a few therapists talk about and everything else. It's when you're working on such, you kind of get that disassociation kind of effect. So
Yeah.
your conscious mind is sitting here working on this, and if you're having those, again, this is just what I'm no expert here, so and I'd like to have your input on that. So when you're working on stuff, like if on those tough days, you're working on something you can focus here, but then you can let the subconscious kind of work through that. For with my daughter's issue, one of my daughter who passed away and everything, and
Mhm.
I get those days that I see that flag where I find her in the canal. I let it come, I let it roll over me
Right.
now. I don't try to bury down, tamp that down, which is not good. Apparently, I did that in the past, but I didn't realize I was doing
I
it.
think it's a normal reaction for a lot of
So
people,
I work through it and everything. I get in those days, I'll start working on something
right?
or listen to music, distract myself. But as I'm working everything, I guess you ride that wave out easier. It's that
Yeah,
kind
or
of
you process it differently. I don't know somehow, but
it's somehow it helps your process. Again, I'm no expert. I went through a little bit of therapy for after my divorce and everything else. I dove into my daughter's accident and her death and everything. And kind of helped me. He kind of used some stuff. It was the used me and Abbott just went through this on a previous podcast on the thumb things.
give you different tools or
Yeah,
whatever
and
to
it's
try
kind of
to.
something they use with veterans too, for that to deal with that trauma.
They've tried various approaches, and
Um,
yeah.
Again, I'm not comparing my stuff to what you veterans have gone through because, um,
Well, any more than I can't compare
mm,
mine to your dad's. They're
yeah,
going to be
that's
different.
where exactly I was going.
So,
Like, I mean, I've heard some stories. Maybe I'll share this one story eventually on this platform of a shrunken head thing. I'll tell you a little bit about that later.
all right.
And then years later, it dawns on like, oh, oh, and it's kind of one of those all shit moments. Like,
Hmm.
well, I'll dive into that off
Okay.
camera. So,
Yeah.
but it's just working with certain things, the work related therapy. And that's one thing I want to do with my company. Hopefully, we've talked about,
Uh-huh.
get to that point where we can do that charity where we bring veterans, not only veterans, but troubled youth, working with your hands and creating something. How's that how's
Satisfying.
that help you in life today after military, after going what you've experienced through your career?
Satisfying, very. So, this is me, and so again, kind of like me and your
Mhm.
dad or whatever. Like everybody's different. I
Different.
get it, and so what I've done isn't necessarily going to work for everybody, but my experience has
Well, then
been
my thinking,
the transition and all that. But um, making knives does require some effort. You got to think about it.
mhm.
And to me, it was kind of new territory. Every time I do it, it's a different project, or I try new things. And so it draws you in, it pulls you in. And that's not necessarily just a full distraction, but it's taking a negative. The negative is, well, I can mope around or I can dwell on this or I can let it eat at me or worry me or whatever, or sit there and think, what if all day long.
Mhm.
I can't do anything about that. It's out of my wheelhouse. I don't have control of that
Yeah,
really.
past is
The
past is.
control that I do have is what's in front of me
Mhm.
right now. And I've got a shop, I've got things available. I've got my life pretty well settled in where I'm very fortunate. I got access to some of that stuff. And even on a simple budget or just basic stuff, I'm not saying, hey, everybody go be a knife maker and all your problems will go away. No, that's not going to happen. But you will learn things, you will deal with them differently
And
as you progress through it. And so the army was every day different things could happen. Some days were really boring, some days were holy crap, you didn't know what to expect. And you adjust to that oddly enough. So when the room's all quiet and everybody's just sitting there chilling, I'm on edge, which is backwards. And when things are chaotic and the plane's crashing and everybody's freaking out, that's my happy place. I'm just sitting there like, okay, and I'm sitting there developing a plan. Okay, this is what needs to happen. I need to get these people. I need to do this. I need to, and I'm calm. Which my wife is always like, "What is wrong with you?" Like,
well, you're
like
used
we
to.
go to Lagoon or something like that, and I'll go on a crazy ride or whatever. It's fine. Take my daughter and have fun with her, you know. And through the ride, I'm chill. I'm just like, and my wife's over there just freaking out and doing her thing. And then I'm just chilling on the ride until we get off, and then the rest of the day, the ride's over. It's finished. Everything's over and done. And now I'm experiencing the effects of it.
And I understand. I was listening to, I can't remember if it was on Joe Rogan or another podcast was this too. There was a gentleman was talking about the psychology, and he was a veteran and everything else. You're wired for that chaos. That chaos is your peace.
That's what it becomes.
Yeah. So and when you get out of that, and it explained a lot, growing up, understanding certain things my dad went through, over here watching here dad doing. And
my dad was the same way. He's a Navy vet, and he spent a lot of time in Vietnam. And I learned as a young kid, there are just certain things you don't say or do because it sets them off.
And
and other things are fun.
And us was don't talk about it, don't bring it up.
Right.
Back then, that's what it was. Vietnam veterans, and then I don't know if your dad's case the same way. They didn't really have anything. They had a VA guy show up. Hey, you doing?
We got a lot more resources now. I think the VA a long way. Kudos to them and lots of resources.
So now looking back as a small child, I didn't understand that. Small kid, you hear dad was in war. Yeah. You watch movies in war. What was it like? And
some of the senior guys that I served with and everything else, my peers, I heard in various conversations, and I went along with it. I even agreed to them to some degree at the time, where they talked about Vietnam vets and everything. They're like, man, the guys are a bunch of crybabies. They're always whining about stuff, and they don't get this, and they don't get that, but you do a little research and understand the time frame and what they came home to, what they dealt with. They didn't have a choice. Some of them were drafted, and some of them joined. Some of them were drafted.
Or you were in court and you got sent over there.
Yes.
They sent some people over there. Probably should have been in the military.
And then when they got home, the public hated them.
Yep.
There was no warm welcome.
Thanks for
there was none of that.
Yep.
So, and I'm very grateful for the Vietnam generation because most of the resources that we have now through the VA and everything is because of them.
Yep.
Because they were sitting there going, "This is bull crap. We should get this. We should get that. We've got an ungrateful nation, and nobody takes care of us." I'm not trying to be a crybaby, but I'm in a dang wheelchair. I can't walk. I can't hold a job. I can't do this.
You were in Vietnam.
So I get it. Yeah, they would and threaten them all the time and you name it. So they went through some crap, but they were vocal about it, gratefully. So I am thankful to that generation because
I never thought about it.
We wouldn't have any of the stuff we have with the VA. They wouldn't have had any of that legislation go through. They wouldn't have changed any of the stuff if it wasn't for them.
I was watching if you've checked out The Fat Electrician.
I haven't yet. I'll
check him out. He goes into some awesome military history and everything else. And then he talks about that there was a veteran, a World War II veteran, and he got a little bit of tax debt and everything else. They seized these benefits and this and that.
No.
And finally the news came within the media was good in that aspect. Got onto it and they did a story because he was a war hero. Got credit investment. They passed a law with it. Your benefits can't be seized for past tax debt because of that. You check that, you'll
little
love
things like that, but they make it big.
Fat electrician. He's an electrician by trade, but also in the military too as a medic.
Okay.
I love the hell out of that guy.
I'll check it out.
Oh,
let's go.
But shout out to Fat Electrician. I'm going to say, I'm actually going to spoiler alert. Hope he doesn't listen to this, but if he is listening to my podcast, that's awesome. I kind of get it somewhere, but I'm going to make one of these, send to him.
Oh, there you go.
Why not?
Spoiler.
So, but What's gonna, where did the 2 hours went?
I don't know.
You believe it's noon
I
already?
know we really got into this, huh?
Uh,
Well, so you asked about that with the
yep,
knife making, and so to me, it's not purely a distraction; it's repurpose.
yes.
So I definitely had to go through some adjustments, figure some things out, but turn a negative into a positive.
Yeah.
And
That's what we say,
so
forge a
the other
negative
thing
into
I
positive.
noticed is even if I'm in a chaotic moment, say the plane's crashing, the plan I'm developing or thinking of is what the Army trained me to do for so long, which is how do I get these people out? How do I get myself out as well? But how do I save my family? How do I save these people? How do I get many of them out? How do I get them calmed down? How do I take control of the situation and get the best outcome I can possibly get, right? Just as an example,
Hmm.
you kind of get accustomed to that. And so I felt very purposeless when I got out of the army. And
And
so
I've heard
I
that one.
overextended myself a little bit because I was offering people help for free all the time, which I still do, but I was overly doing it a little bit. I think I learned
Overextended.
because I didn't
You didn't
feel
set
very
that
needed.
boundary.
I was retired, I was comfortable, I had what I needed, and I'm just like, well, this sucks. Now what? Which sounds very ungrateful. I'm super grateful for where I'm at and what I got. Things are
Hmm.
awesome right now. Um, but that purpose thing, and so I needed a mission, right? And we're always mission driven. What's
Yes.
the next
That-
mission? What's the
And
next mission? What's the
that was
next mission?
that was
I go to
hammering.
bed at night because I need rest
Yeah.
to be ready for the mission the next
Next day.
day, and that's what you're so used to. And so you become a civilian and you're just kind of like, "Bleh, what is this crap? This sucks in a way until you readjust. And then you
Mhm.
realize, like, wow, this is kind of nice. I got some freedoms. Like, my time is my own a little
A little
bit.
bit.
This is kind of cool.
You're not gonna get recommended for being
So
a
use it,
reveille.
Right. Yeah. So
So
use it and use it the best way you can,
yeah.
which is, I'm not saying knives, but I did the engineering thing. So I've explored knives, firearms, a little teaser out there. Stay tuned in the future because I've been working on a project that I've been thinking about a long time ago in the military, sitting there in guard shacks and stuff, freezing my tail off, thinking about this and how it's going to come
Sweet.
together. And I've now in the position where I've been able to put it together. And
Sweet.
I've got all my patterns done. I've got a product slash thing I'm working on that it's not a firearm,
Hmm.
but it kind of bridges the gap between archery and firearms. It's a
Oh,
piece
I
of
think you
sporting
mentioned that before.
equipment,
Okay.
but I've revisited it a few times and I'm really happy with where
I
it's going right now.
okay. I think I know what you're talking
So
about.
I'm
I think you
still
mentioned in
I'm
the
still
past.
testing and developing a little
A
bit.
little
I
R&D.
mean, I'm no marketing expert or anything, so there's people out there want to help me with
I
that.
could
And
help.
so,
I can help. I got friends that help
but
do the help me market all this
there you
stuff.
go.
So
But stay tuned because I think it's going to be pretty exciting. It's very old ancient technology with a new twist, and it bridges the gap between firearms and archery. I think it's going to be
I
awesome.
think you've.
I think it's going to be
If I
fun.
remember correctly, I think I know where you're going
If
with
you
this.
like guns or you like outdoor stuff, you like any of that, I think
So,
you'll like it. If so, we'll revisit that at another time. But in the meantime, um, I always need one of these with me. Everybody does. They always need a
yeah.
knife. And so it helps me just kind of zone out in my shop. That's my happy place. That's a secure location, if you will, for the military folks out there. And I can just kind of zone out and focus and do that.
Nice.
And when I get bored with it, I take it to the next step. When I'm on autopilot and I'm building a dozen of these a day and they're getting boring, then I
Same.
switch up my design. I start doing something different, or I add a new element to it, or whatever. And so I'm always busy. I don't think in 10 lifetimes I could build every possible combination of a knife or firearm or any of that if I tried. So I revisited that and understood that there's so much more room for to explore there.
Hmm.
And so that's what's helped me. And I'm a dude, so I love working with my hands. I feel productive when I constructed something. I have had friends that are contractors and stuff, and I don't build houses or anything. But the satisfaction they get of
Hmm.
just being able to contribute or build something. Imagine being that dude back in the 30s or something that you could walk by the Empire State Building and be like,
I
"Hey, see
bet
that floor right up
there.
there? I
I
did
did.
that one.
Yeah.
Those beams over there and all that." And I did like that's amazing to me. It always will be.
It's like
So,
right with Sam up north and a few places in the project he works construction. He's like,
uh-huh.
"Hey, see that?" He says, "Yeah, I built that." And then he goes into how they build it and everything else. It's actually built the it's a crossover, two
Yeah.
crossovers.
Okay.
They're actually where you drive up on is dirt, but it's also the center of it's foam because
Okay.
the water table is so high. They couldn't, and the bedrock is way down. So
Way
there's
down there.
nothing to really tie it into.
Hmm.
So it's basically you can feel it when you get on there because you can feel it when the wind blowing. You can
Weird.
it's like, why does the road feel like it's floating? That's why.
It is floating.
And
Yeah. Engineering.
but this is where I'd like to wrap up with the words of wisdom. Anything you want, like we talked about working to change your purpose and everything. I really like that. Um, how you're saying it, re-engineer yourself and basically, engineer yourself, taking what you were trained for war, but turn it to repurposing it for civilian day-to-day life, being
Yeah.
home with family and everything. Anything you want to pass on as a words of wisdom, or maybe to my other veterans that are struggling. I mean, we really they say 22 a day. I guess they update it now. It's like almost like 44 a day of that we're losing of all
A
veterans
lot. Yeah.
from Vietnam. I don't know if we have much Koreans left. I think we bought out of World War II. I think we're losing
We've lost some of the last World War II ones. There's a lot of Vietnam guys around still, but getting less and less.
For guys who your age, our age group. I think you're only a couple years older than me. I'm 40 now.
Iraq and Afghanistan drug on for 20 years.
Years,
So there's a lot of us out there. There's
So
plenty.
what would you be encouraging them? And then not only that, but for other people who kids have, a shitty home and everything else, like kind of words of wisdom for them to take up, not just knife making, maybe making a hammer or making this painting or anything, or just some words of wisdom, encouragement that, I don't know. You see what I'm going here?
I do kind of, I think. I mean,
So I don't, words are not my friend.
I'm super grateful for the country that we're in. That's why I served. That's why I defended it and did what I did. And, everyone else that's done the same. We have a lot of resources. We have a lot of stuff out there. Some of it's kind of a bureaucracy. You might have to even fill out paperwork and stuff. Oh no.
And I know a few people that can help with that if you're a veteran too.
Right. And there are people in between, yeah, middlemen and everyone else that can help you do that. But just don't be afraid to ask for help, whatever it might be. Kids with, abusive parents or an abusive home, or veterans that are having a rough time, or whatever the case might be. Just ask, don't swallow your pride a little bit and understand that everybody needs a little bit of help now and then. There's nothing wrong with that. I get a kick out of the memes I see on Facebook because it said something about, don't cry at a funeral and whatever. I don't know, just some kind of nonsense. And it's like,
don't cry, boy.
Be a man, and yeah, definitely that's most of our day-to-day stuff. But I mean, if you're on the fence and you're literally gonna like take your own life or something, like don't do that. Just talk to someone, get some help. There's plenty of people, plenty of professionals. It won't cost you a dime. It doesn't, it's not putting them out. It's not disrupting them. There's, every, regardless of your denomination, just don't be afraid to ask for help. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. And everybody needs a little kickstart now and then, just refresh, restart, and find a new purpose. And you're watching this podcast, you probably like something about knives. I don't know, maybe.
I would hope so.
But you might find a little purpose in that. And that helps me and others like me find purpose too, because I do have a little bit of background. I got a little knowledge there, and I love nothing more than to share it. I'm not the know all be all, but if I can make your life easier, save you some money, save you mistakes and things like that, that's what I'm here for, to give lessons, classes, free stuff, whatever. And I can't do it all for free necessarily, but
true. There's big little tips and tricks.
As much as I can help and save people the time and trouble and things like that, that's what I like to do. And I go to bed good at night knowing that if I help someone else out.
So. Do you got any platform, any social media people could reach out to, maybe on your engraving, knife making?
I don't really yet. I have a business card that I'll give to you.
Okay, cool.
That I've somewhat officially started. It's oh goodness, when you get it out of there.
Oh, great guy, make good cards too.
I do.
I like that.
I make fancy cards.
Rustic Trail Engraving, not picture engraving.
Rusty Chisel.
Rusty Chisel. Huh?
There are some other gentlemen up north using that
term.
I
like that better. Rusty Chisel Engraving.
He's using that, so that one's mine now. So
I like that. Well, I've been shouting you out at Patriot Engraving, so
yeah,
All right, that's cool.
And I didn't talk the engraving thing a ton, but this
Oh,
is
yes, we can dive into that a
that's
little
a
bit.
little example of the kind of work I do.
I do have a money clip you gave me
That's
a while back. It's in the
the
safe. I
money
don't
clip
dare
I
crack
did.
it.
A little Western engraving going on, so I got a long way to go. Still lots to learn. I'm always practicing. I could do engraving 10 lifetimes in a row, and I still wouldn't be as good at it
We'll get a
as I
picture
would
of
like
that
to
and put
be.
up with the social media.
So,
So, is there any social media with this? Instagram, Facebook?
not as of yet. I am on
Okay,
Facebook, just Joshua Eubanks. I
all
don't
right.
have a picture on there yet, but I'll change that here eventually.
Got a hole right here. Ah,
Stick it on your forehead.
yeah, there we go.
Yep.
The old 70 card
So,
trick, you know.
but they can get a hold of you or
Yeah.
whatever, or different things. I forgot because I did make a note. So a little shout out to a gentleman named Chris Crawford. He does have a website. Nice guy. He's been doing folding knives for quite some time. And I'm mentioning him because on his page, if you Google Chris Crawford knives and pull up his page, he's got a really nice setup there. Look for where it says patterns, and he's got contributors that put patterns on there. Well, he puts them on there. They send them to him, and he looks through them and he uploads them. And
Nice.
so, if you're really wanting to do folders and get into those, that's a good starting point because he's got free patterns on there. You just pull it up, size it to whatever you want, and print that bad boy off and go to work. He's got slip joints. He doesn't have many of these friction folders, but I'll see if I can change that because I am
Nice.
kind of a pattern guy. And I'll put them on there. That way everybody can kind of have access to them. I might use him a little to, as a resource to do that with since he's already got it set up if he's
Very
if he's if he's good with that. And I'll just contribute some patterns, but he's got lockbacks. He's got a couple autos on there. He's got a lot of slip joints, some really cool stuff. And,
nice.
nice contributors that put them on there. So check those out if you need a pattern.
Awesome. And what was his name again?
Chris Crawford.
Chris Crawford.
And
Chris
I think
Crawford
that's what
Knives.
he's at. The site is chriscrawfordknives.com or something
Awesome.
like that. So
Well, hey, appreciate it, man.
you
Yeah,
bet.
oh, here, bump and a shake.
Right.
Hope I didn't bore you. I hope this made some good sense.
I don't,
Again, I kind of have a general idea what I want to do with this, but I like the free will, like I do in the shop sometimes.
yeah,
I kind of come up with a plan, but at the same time I kind of go with the flow of it
nothing wrong with that.
because I am doing a lot better. I'm learning to shut up a lot, not interjecting me so much. But I'll try to get questions here. I totally forgot about it and spaced it off. But yeah, let's shine out of here. I'll show you what I'm doing in the shop real quick and let you
Awesome.
get going.
Feedback. If you
Yeah,
want, like, we could set the camera up and do a walkthrough or show you the
yeah,
pattern thing or whatever. Just let us know. Let
we
us
can do a
know what you
recording
got
of.
out of it, what you like, what
Yeah,
you don't like,
I like
whatever.
that idea. I think we should still do it. Let us know in the comments. Just find us. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, Behind the Anvil. On YouTube, it's American Bladesmith YouTube channel because we're going to do a lot more. We're going to do this. We did 3 shows with Beat the Smith.
Yeah,
We're retooling it, regearing it for like I've told you before about the American Bladesmith, the idea of
right.
that kind of show. So we won't dive into that much. But anyways, as we say in the shop, stay sharp, America, and remember, Jesus Christ is the only King there is. Appreciate it. And let me get out of here. I will be glad when I get somebody else to do this.